All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Peace be upon you all. This is Jake Brancatella, the 2.0 version. I'm going to be having a discussion today with Chris from Speaker's Corner. We're going to be discussing what the Islamic Dilemma is, maybe what it's not, my particular argument or response to the Islamic Dilemma. And it's going to be conversation style. So I'll ask Chris some questions. I'm sure he'll ask me some questions, and we'll go back and forth on this. This is something that I think Chris is very interested in. He's supposedly writing a book or publishing a book on a subject. Maybe we'll talk more about that later as well. So pretty much, I know the chat. This is being, by the way, this is being live streamed on both of our channels. So at the same time, exact same content. I know that there's going to be a lot of people in the chat, probably on both sides, making potentially disrespectful comments. Let's try to keep that out of it. To be honest, I'm not going to be focusing too much on the chat because I'm going to be focusing on the conversation with Chris. So anyway, try to be respectful, and let's see where this goes. But Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Just to add, I think, I could be wrong, but I think the comments in StreamYard are both your audiences and my audiences together, I think.
It looks like it.
Yeah, it looks like it, yeah. But yeah, I'm doing very, very good. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you about the Islamic Dilemma. I know that you've been debating some pretty high-profile Christians on this. And since I've been kind of behind the scenes writing a book on this, I thought it'd be great to have a dialogue with you and just talk about it, because I watched your debate with David Wood, and I wasn't being insincere when I said I thought you actually performed very well. I think that the way you came off is as a very good public speaker. I do think that what you said did not actually contribute to the Islamic dilemma, and that's where we're going to have contention, right? That's what we're probably going to be discussing. But I mean, how do you want to do this? I can just start talking about the Islamic dilemma. I mean, just present it to your audience.
I'll ask you what. I guess, yeah. I'll just start by asking you what is the Islamic dilemma in your understanding?
Sure. So the Islamic dilemma can it's a broad term for quite a few things. Really, it boils down to the idea that there are some key Islamic sources that fundamentally are not coherent. They're incoherent. So the main objection is usually towards the Quran in particular, although not always. But the idea is that when you read the Quran, it has relations with Christian and Jewish scriptures. It confirms them. It uses the Arabic word musaddiq, which when you look at the Quran appears 19 times over 18 verses. And in all of those verses, it confirms the previous scriptures as they were held. And we know it's in the period of Muhammad because 6 of those verses say what is with you in the present tense. The other ones say what was before you, and you can argue that was perhaps a period in time that was before Muhammad. But because there are those 6 verses that employ the Masadic term in the context of Muhammad's life, we know it's in the 7th century. So the problem then is we know the Quran confirms our scriptures, ours in the sense of the Torah and the Injil or the Gospel. There are obviously others, but I tend not to go into those because they're slightly more ambiguous as to what the Quran thinks they are. But the Quran is very clear, and it mentions by name 18 times the Torah, 12 times for the Injil, that the Quran confirms them. It has no issue with them. It thinks they are true. It verifies them. Not only does it do this from the perspective of Allah, the writer or the author supposedly of the Quran, it does this from the perspective of Jesus. Jesus is said to say this, or Isa. John the Baptist says this, or Yahya says this. The jinn say this. And also Muhammad himself says this. So many different characters in the Quranic narrative proclaim that they all confirm the scriptures, the Torah, and the Gospel in the 7th century. This would mean, and this is how David Wood summarizes this argument, that it is inspired, preserved, and authoritative in the 7th century from the Quran's perspective. Now, I know that you have issues with the authority side of things, but the reason why I think that although great rhetoric you didn't actually cover the content of the Islamic dilemma is because ultimately, as David said in the debate, the inspiration and preservation, you could just run it on those alone. You don't actually need to bring authority into it. But authority is useful because it helps determine, first of all, the identity of those scriptures. If you can establish using authority to point to exactly what they are confirming, that's useful. But also, it shows that there is a very important reason that the Quran is referring to our scriptures, namely because of things like prophecies and prophetic stories. Stories of the prophets that are meant to inspire the Christians and Jews to follow Muhammad. The Christians and Jews are meant to be able to look at the Torah and Injil and say, Muhammad is mentioned here. That is reason for us to accept that Islam is true and the Quran is true and Muhammad is true. Likewise, the Christians are meant to, according to the Quran, look at the stories of prophets and say, okay, Moses is mentioned here, Abraham is mentioned here, Noah is mentioned here, Joseph is mentioned here. These are all found in the Torah. Therefore, we can know that Muhammad is in the same line of continuity as these previous prophets. This to us forms the foundation of the problem, because we do not find Muhammad either in the Gospel or the Torah as he is described, and we do not find the same stories of the prophets as they are told, for example, in Genesis. So that, to me, I think is the main point. If you bring authority, obviously those prophecies are authoritative for us, supposedly, because the Quran says we're meant to follow them, acknowledge them, and follow them. The Quran records in many verses, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 146, Surah 6, ayah 20, that supposedly we know Muhammad is there. We actually acknowledge this at the time of Muhammad in the 7th century. Christians and Jews, people of the book, the Al-Kitab, they recognize Muhammad, but they conceal this knowledge. Again, problematic because that's still authoritative today, right? And likewise, so would the stories for the previous prophets. The story of Moses is still authoritative and binding as a story and the message it tells, regardless of time. So when we talk about legal authority, we're actually talking about something that, in my opinion, the Quran already addresses, right? As you bring up, it brings up abrogation. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 106. The Quran makes clear that from its own understanding, there are legal rulings that are context sensitive in a time and place, and they can be changed. The Quran makes that very clear. It thinks it has the right to do that. And it also points in Surah Al-Imran, ayah 50, it points out that Isa, Jesus, did this with the Torah. So it already knows, it acknowledges this. But of course, there is no equivalent for other aspects of authority that are not legal. So again, main theological concerns, those don't seem to be things that can be abrogated. Likewise with the stories of the prophets, and likewise with the prophecies of Muhammad. These things are not abrogated, they are still there. And that's really my issue. And I think it's something that as a Muslim, as a da'i, you kind of have to address, because if you don't address these things, you're not really addressing the Islamic dilemma. You're kind of having like nuance in defining what authority is, but really it's still authoritative. You just point out that a certain kind of authority ceases to apply after a period of time, which I don't think is really relevant to the Islamic dilemma ultimately. So that's the argument.
Yeah. So you spoke for quite a while, but on the authority aspect specifically, before I start giving my own thoughts on it. So you said you watched my debate with David, correct?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Okay. I also had a debate with Avery recently on the same topic, but it hasn't been published yet.
Not out
so
yet.
Assuming you haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it. No, I have no idea what happened in that. I think it's coming out like in a few hours' time. So annoyingly, after this discussion, I'll then go and watch that debate and see what you say. So, but
Okay. I mean, I say pretty similar things. It's not all that much different than what I said or my approach with David. So on that, on what because you haven't seen it, so we'll just go off the David debate. What did you understand my argument to be, or my main argument?
Your main argument is that the way that the Islamic dilemma can be said, or has been said in the past, is it's formulated as confirming the inspiration, preservation, and authority for all time. And you take issue with that because you point out that authority does not actually apply today from the Quranic perspective. And you point out Surah Al-Tawbah, ayah 29. You also mention the verse that talks about the Sabbath, and one of the verse that, forgive me, skips my mind. But your argument is to say, well, hang on a second. If you're trying to say that we are confirming all of the previous scriptures, you can actually point out that there is at least one aspect in the way this is summarized, the authority side, from a legal point of view, where this is not the case from the 7th century onwards. And therefore, there is a part of that that means there are some things that are no longer applicable. Therefore, the formulation, inspiration, preservation, and authority doesn't hold. And I think that's basically summarizing your argument. Tell me if you think that's not a fair characterization. But
And yeah, I know it's pretty fair. So what do you think is, do you think that under the rendition that you mentioned earlier of David Wood, which you seem to be okay with and agree with, on inspiration, preservation, or authority, do you think that my argument against the authority aspect is properly targeting the authority of the Islamic dilemma?
No, I would say no. So legal authority, I don't really think is a main point that's ever usually brought up. I mean, I don't bring it up as a problem. I don't say, for example, the Torah says it's not permissible to eat camel meat, but the Quran says you can eat camel meat. This is a big problem. I mean, to be honest, the main things that are brought up tend to be the theological aspects. It's like the Christology of Jesus, right? Like the Trinity. It tends to be things like this. It's not really the legal aspect that's often brought up at all. And to be honest with you, we could just grant. I think we could just grant your view. It would be somewhat fine. It doesn't touch the dilemma. Again, you need to solve the prophecies of Muhammad because they are authoritative, supposedly, for us, and you need to solve the stories of the prophets because I think those are clear examples. I mean, I could expand this to more if you want, like stories of eschatological issues. I think is another problem. These things are all binding for the Christian and Jew. Whereas legal aspects, yeah, the Quran itself addresses that. So it's really the authority that was there in the 7th century, right? Muhammad said our scriptures are authoritative to judge from to get to Islam, right? So
is that all? Is that all it meant by authority, according to you?
Not so. Wait, how do you mean? How do you mean by that?
Because you're trying to, at this point, you're trying to define what, or this is what the entire discussion here is about. When a Christian apologist or someone who is running or promoting the Islamic dilemma argument refers to the Quran affirming either the Bible or the Torah and Injil, whatever way you want to phrase it, I don't really care for this point in time, as affirming its authority. What is meant by that when the claim is that it's affirming the authority of the Bible?
So I would say the truth within it. So just to make this clear, my position, I do think it teaches total confirmation. I don't think you can look at the Quran and derive a general confirmation. I don't think you can do that and be faithful to the text. I also think it has serious issues with the idea itself, which we can go into. So yeah, from the Quranic author's perspective, he thinks the previous scriptures are reliable, preserved, and inspired, and authoritative in not a legal sense after or near the end of Muhammad, but from a theological sense, right?
So is it is the Quran affirming the entirety of the inspiration and preservation?
Yes.
Okay. But it's not affirming the entirety of the authority.
So no, it is. It is. It's just that the Quran also clarifies here that the authority that it's referring to for the previous scriptures, and it gives examples of these, So prophecies, previous stories, those are the things in which it demonstrates as being authoritative.
Yeah, but Chris, you don't see what you're doing here is when it comes to inspiration and preservation, you don't add any caveat. But when it comes to authority, you're adding caveats and you're limiting the scope of the authority. You're saying that the legal aspects of those texts, whether it's Torah, Injil, entirety of the Bible, however you want to phrase it, you're saying it does not have in mind affirming the legal aspects of those books as authorities.
So let me be clear here. It does affirm the legal authorities, but not after a specific point. So when we look at the Quran, most scholars and the tradition, right, says you have the Meccan period, you have the Medinan period. So in the early Meccan period, it seems quite clear to me that, yeah, the author of the Quran is happy for there to be separate communities that each have their own scripture, and that scripture to them, legally speaking, is authoritative to them. You can derive this from Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 48, for example, as well as other verses. Like actually, start from 43. 43 makes that quite apparent as well. But there is, as I think you are correct in saying that when we get to Surah Al-Tawbah, which is much later in Muhammad's life, it's arguably one of the last surahs. We then see there is a change in thinking, and then all of a sudden, actually, no, you can go out and you can fight those who do not believe in Allah nor the last day, and you can establish a kind of authority over them. And that wasn't the case before. So, yeah, I can affirm all of it, including the legal authority, but it does change near the end of Muhammad's life.
So by the time that Surah Tatoba, ayah number 29, which talks about the jizya, and I was kind of harping on that point with David, that at that point you are of the position that the Quran does not see the previous scriptures as legal authorities for Jews and Christians to follow at that point going forward.
So I would say it's actually Surah Taba ayah 29 seems to be in the context of after you have invited those to Islam and they've rejected it. So in this sense, there would still be communities, Christian and Jewish communities, that do still follow it. And it seems reasonable to me to think that that's probably because it's still binding, legally speaking, from a Quranic perspective. But the Quran author, near the end, when the command for offensive jihad is given, the perspective changes, and the perspective changes to actually know, rather than permitting them in some kind of like ecumenical manner to have their own law, rather we need to invite them to Islam, and if they reject it, no, now we have authority. That seems to be what the Quran is doing.
What does it mean for the Muslims or Islam to have authority if they reject Islam? What does that mean? How does that play out?
It plays out through the political law that the Christians and Jews are under, the dimitude and the jizya that they pay.
But isn't that in that's in 929? So
yeah,
I don't understand when you say no, it's not actually 929, it's later on. What verse of the Quran or what tradition, maybe in hadith sources, what do you have in mind that actually now goes to the next step?
The fact that there are prior verses that have no issue with the legal authority of the Gospel and Torah for the Christians and Jews.
No. But what I get that we can get to that in a minute. But I'm saying where is the turning point in the Quran? Like what verse do you say now no longer are Jews and Christians allowed to follow their scriptures for salvation or in matters of legal authority?
I don't think there's a specific verse I can point to that sort of shows when that happens. I wouldn't really consider Sunni Shia tradition hadith-wise to be reliable anyway, so I'd have concerns with that. So I'd be agnostic to that point. I wouldn't be able to say exactly which verse. But again, I don't think it really matters to the argument.
No, it does. It does because you're saying that you're recognizing that that is the case, and I'm just wondering why you're recognizing that that's the case. I mean, I have my own arguments and reasons for why I don't think that the Quran or traditional Sunni Islam is affirming the legal authority of the previous scriptures. But I'm wondering what your reasoning is for that. What is your evidence for that? If it's not a particular verse, what is your evidence for that? Because you're saying it wasn't in the earlier period. So I'm wondering what is and you can cite verses like you tried to cite Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter 5 verse 48, which you think is in 48, sorry, which you think is in support of the earlier position. But what are some verses or some evidence that is in support of your claim that now later on there's a switch to they're no longer accepted as legal authorities for Jews and Christians to follow?
Well, I think you kind of summarized it quite well. So Surah Al-Ma'idah ayah 48 talks about different laws and how those different laws are binding and how that was intentional according to Allah. That seems pretty clear. A few verses before 43, you can point to the fact that there is some kind of community coming to Muhammad and asking him to give ruling and judgment. And he says, look, they have the Torah, which is Allah's judgment, his commandments. Again, kind of very strongly implies that this is still legally binding. Surah 62 ayah 5 points to the fact that the Torah is there written down, but what use is it to Jews when it's like, it gives an analogy. It's like I think he says like a donkey or a camel carrying books. What good is it? They don't read them, they don't use them. So yeah, the Quran is very clear. You can go to more verses as well. You can go to Surah Al-Baqarah ayah 44. It says they teach the scriptures, but they're hypocrites. They don't follow them. Again, it seems to be like the Quran author is perfectly fine with them teaching from these prior scriptures. There's nothing in there to suggest at all any issue with legal authority whatsoever. But again, legal authority is a very small aspect out of the other aspects of authority.
Yeah.
So it's not really a point, right?
It is a big point. I'm going to show you how it's a big point as we go along. But until we can agree on what we're actually talking about here, there's no point of moving on. And to be honest, it seems like you're engaged in a bit of double talk, because on the one hand, you're saying that in an earlier period, the scriptures of the Jews and Christians were seen as legal authorities, and you can present all the evidence that you just did. But then you're also claiming, but there was a change later on where they're no longer accepted as legal authorities. And when I ask you,
they've been invited to Islam at a specific point.
But hold on a second. When I ask you what the evidence is for that, you don't have any evidence. So if I were,
I'm agreeing with you.
What's that?
I'm agreeing with your point. 929.
Okay, so you agree that in 929 and going forward, at least at that point, the scriptures of the Jews and Christians are no longer legal authorities. That
for those who rejected Islam,
for those who reject Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and are they? Is your position that the Jews and Christians at that point going forward are supposed to actually accept Islam and the Quran as the ultimate legal authority?
Once they hear of Islam, yeah.
Okay, and if they don't, then what is the punishment for that, both in the worldly life and the afterlife?
Well, it seems as if we can reason it, right? If you're a person of the book, a Jew or a Christian, and you've not heard of Islam, so you've not rejected it, you've never heard of it either, it would seem to follow from what the Quran talks about with our scriptures being legal authorities is that would still be binding. In fact, it would still be binding today in that respect.
In what sense it's legally binding?
For those who have not heard of Islam and have not been invited to
Okay,
Islam.
I'm talking about for the people who have been have heard of Islam and been invited to it. Then
oh yeah, if you've been invited to Islam and you reject it, then yeah, it's in pretty clear 929 you're to be fought. That seems clear from the reading to me.
You're to be fought, or you can pay the jizya and remain in an Islamic society under
of course,
Islamic protectorate. And then in terms of the afterlife, if you hear about Islam and you hear it presented correctly and you willingly reject it, then what is the state of those people, both people of the book and otherwise?
I'm not sure on that one.
Why not? What's your hang up?
I'm just not sure. But again, do you concede that what I've said there is true? So do you think so when I said that there are Christians and Jews who are still legally binding to the Torah and Injil today, if they have not heard of Islam?
If they haven't heard of Islam, then they should be following the Torah and Injil.
Yeah, so they're Christians and Jews. They have their scripture, right, which is the same scripture from the 7th century. They've not heard of Islam. They've not been invited to it yet. So is it legally binding for them?
I wouldn't phrase it that way, that it's legally binding for them. I would phrase it as that every person is going to be accountable based upon the information and ability that they had at the time, right? So whether it's a Jew who only knows about what he contains of the Torah, or a Christian in the Injil, or maybe somebody who grew up as an atheist or an atheist family but has access to the internet and sources, and even just their everyday life, which allows them to recognize a creator, or somebody who's living in the Amazon. Everybody's going to be judged upon the amount of light and guidance that they had access to.
Okay, so the Quran says in multiple places that the Torah and Injil have guidance and light. So if they do have guidance and light and they've not heard of Islam, even today in the 21st century,
they'll be judged based upon how they reacted to that.
Right. Okay. So should they have followed the Torah and Injil? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying
it has guidance and light in it.
Yeah, so they're going to be judged based upon how they responded to what they received. And in that case, that person would be a Jew or a Christian, is going to be judged based upon how they responded to the guidance and light that they had available.
Okay, right. So they do have to respond to it by following it, presumably.
They have to they have to respond to it by following the light and the guidance from it. And if they don't, then they're going to be held accountable. Now, if they come across a Muslim, they come across the message of Islam, and it's presented to them, but then they're going to be held accountable based upon how they respond now to receiving that guidance and light. But I don't think this is really
makes sense.
But I don't think that this is really responding to my main point. See, because on the one hand, you say, or this is how it seemed to me in the beginning, Jake, your argument is not really targeting the Islamic dilemma, because on the one hand, you say, as David Wood said in the debate, right, especially towards the end, he said we could just throw the authority aspect out of the Islamic dilemma, and we can still run it based upon the inspiration and preservation part. You make comments like that on the one hand, then you make comments on the other hand saying, well, the Torah and Injil were legally authoritative according to the Quran for a certain period of time, but once people hear about the message of Islam from at least 929, the verse of jizya going forward, which was a main theme in my debate with David and also Avery, then now the Jews and Christians, or anyone for that matter, who hears about the message of Islam, they are supposed to actually follow the Quran and Islamic law in order to have a right standing with God, right? So, and that's my position. That's what I'm saying. But what would you say to the people who say, no, Chris, you're wrong about that? The Torah and Injil, according to the Quran, are fully authoritative for each respective group, and they're legal authorities from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, going forward all the way till now until Judgment Day. and they are making that claim that that is the authority that the Quran is actually affirming for those scriptures. Do you agree with that?
I
Because you're not agreeing with that.
that's not what I've said. Like, not my view that I hold. I don't know what I think about that. But I think
Well, it
you've
seems
kind
like
of
you're disagreeing
conceded.
with
This
that.
is
It seems like
I
you're
mean,
disagreeing with that.
what I want to get back to is I think you've just conceded, because if you say that
Conceded
there is a
what?
sense, because you're saying that there is a kind of legal authority that is no longer applicable, that the Christians and Jews don't have to follow. They now need to follow the Quran. But I've just given
Yeah.
you accounts of
Do
people even
you
today
agree with
that, well, wait, I've just given you accounts even today of people that actually ought to follow their scriptures, the Torah and the Injil, because they have not heard of Islam. And by agreeing with me there, you've just shown that actually, no, the legal authority is still present today.
No, no,
You see
no,
how
not
you've
at
no,
all.
I think you're correct in saying that. Obviously, this only applies to people who haven't heard of Islam. I can't give you a number as to how big that is. I imagine it's millions, if not billions, but obviously, a
You
lot of
think
people
there's
do know about Islam
millions of
now.
people that haven't heard of Islam?
They haven't been invited to Islam.
Okay, so they
So remember that from your tradition, you have to call people to Islam, right? You can't just go there and be like, "You're a Christian. I'm going to fight you now." You know, it's like, no, you invite them to Islam. You
yeah,
explain
but
to them the
Chris,
Quran.
but this is why I
Yeah.
asked you. This is why I asked you about the afterlife. Okay, I asked you. There's one aspect of how we are to deal with, let's say, Jews and Christians in the worldly life. For example, Jews and Christians, even now, and under traditional Islamic law, from the time of the Prophet going forward, they are allowed, they are permitted to actually practice or follow their laws and legal codes in their books in a dunyawi or a worldly perspective. But that doesn't mean that Islam is certifying that those things are legal authorities in the sense that they are true and that Jews and Christians actually should follow them, and that if they do follow them and they follow them correctly, that they will be going to paradise. That's not the Islamic position. And that's what I'm focusing on. Islam is saying, no, once Islam is presented to you and it's told to you what it is and that you're supposed to follow it, and you don't follow it, well, yeah, if you pay the jizya and you're a Jew or Christian, you could follow your legal rulings and legal codes in your books, but they're not seen as authoritative in the sense that you actually are supposed to follow them, nor are they things that will actually get you to paradise if you do follow them and you openly reject Islam. That is what my position is. That is what I think the clear position of the Quran and Sunnah are. And I'm asking you if you agree with that or not.
Yeah, I think you've conceded. In all honesty, because none of that I think really
What,
changes
Chris?
the.
I don't even think we're beyond the first step of the argument at this point.
Well, no, this is the whole. Well, at least I would say the main focus of your argument, at least with David Wood, but presumably with Avery as well, is that there is a kind of legal authority that is no longer binding. And I mean, first of all, I don't even think that's problematic anyway. But because you've pushed me to go into this, I'll go into it. I think even if I were to follow you on this, I would just end up with the conclusion, well, this is only for a set group of people, the people who have been invited to Islam. It's not for people who have not been invited to Islam. The Quran is clear that the scriptures, the Torah and the Injil are binding, have guidance and light. You can get into Jannah, at least according to the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 62, Surah Al-Ma'idah, ayah 69. They clearly, it's clearly possible. I don't think of any reason as to why you think that no longer applies, because the Quran doesn't tell you that.
That's what we're trying to discuss. So every time that you say, and I think it's disingenuous. Every time you say, "Oh, Jake, I think you've conceded." Listen, dude.
I don't mean to be evocative. I'm just being honest.
I honestly don't believe two things, and this is the whole point of the stream. I don't think you understand what the Islamic dilemma is. I don't think you understand what my actual argument about the Islamic dilemma is. You also are giving mixed responses, and I already outlined what those are. Sometimes you're saying, "Oh, Jake, well, we could just throw the authority aspect out."
Yes.
Then on the other hand, you're saying, "Well, even what you're saying, Jake, doesn't really conflict with the authority aspect." This is what we're zooming and focusing in on. I'm not
Yes.
talking about the inspiration and preservation part. If we wanted to just talk about that part and say, well, are there any verses in the Quran which talk about textual corruption? We could do that, and we can do that after we get through my point. But that would be boring because that's already been done many, many, many times over.
Well, that's the argument. That's what I'm trying to
No,
say.
no,
I'm
no.
saying that
No,
that's the
that's
substance
not.
of the argument.
That's not
But
the
you're
argument.
avoiding it.
No, no, no. That's not the argument. That's not the argument. And that's
It
why I'm
is.
showing you exactly. That's why I'm showing you if you want to have an honest discussion about the authority aspect of the argument and what my argument regarding that is, that's what I'm here to do. Now, I will move on to the inspiration and preservation part afterward, but I'm not going to do that until we get clear on the authority aspect. And it seems
Okay,
to
so
me, and it seems to me like you're all over the place. On the one hand, I could say, "Oh, Chris, you conceded because you said, according to Quran 9:29, that Jews and Christians who hear about Islam are expected to follow Islamic law. So you've conceded because the Islamic Dilemma claims that the authority aspect is that the Torah and Injil are fully authoritative and fully legally authoritative for Jews and Christians from even the time of the Prophet Muhammad going forward." So you've conceded the argument, Chris.
yeah,
I can do that. I mean, but that's
oh, of
kind of
course you can, my friend. You know, you're free to do that. You're free to say whatever you want to say. But I
right.
think it's fair that the substance of the argument is not with legal authority. Now, you've asked me, now I've made that clear, and then you pushed me to follow you with it.
I'm
And I
disagreeing.
also did that because I gave you both. Yeah, I'm not picking and choosing. I gave both. You wanted my perspective. I gave it. You
But
then
your
said, well,
perspective is
entertain
not
me in
clear.
here. Why is it not clear? I think it was very clear. I
Okay.
told you legal authority
Because
is not necessary for
okay,
the argument to work.
good. It's not. Let's say it's not necessary for the argument to work. That's fine. That's one thing that we can deal with. However, if somebody does use authority, right? If you said to me, Jake, the Islamic dilemma is that the Quran affirms that the previous scriptures are inspired and preserved, but they're not authoritative, then I would have one way of responding to you. But somebody who says that they are inspired, preserved, and authoritative, you have even used those terms yourself, and I actually have a clip of you saying that. I can play it for you if you want.
Oh yeah, I use the terms. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm asking one thing is when Chris says that the Quran affirms the authority of previous scriptures, what does Chris mean by that? That's one question. And then the second question is when other people like David Wood, Avery, Sam Shamoon, whoever you want to add to the list of people who use the Islamic dilemma, when they use the term authority, that the Quran is affirming the authority of the previous scriptures, do you think that they mean it in the same way as you do? Or do they mean it in a different sense? And if so, what is that different sense? That's what I'm focusing in on.
Sure. So I can't speak for everyone, and nor do I claim to do so. But what I do know, knowing these people who present this argument, is that they would agree with me that authority here is being equivocated on. There are different kinds of authority. There's authority from prophecies. There's authority from the similarities in the stories. The Quran makes that clear in many verses. There's also a legal kind of authority, which is still binding for a period in the Quran. After a certain period of time, it appears as if that changes for those who are invited to Islam. I think that's a really honest reading of the text. And I think that, the legal authority doesn't really matter much. Again, we just appeal to other aspects of authority that I've mentioned, prophetic and the similarities.
And do you think that, as you said, you can't speak for everybody, but you're friends with them, you've watched your content, you've seen it, so you should have some level of familiarity. Do you think that those people who are just mentioned, David, Avery, and others, do you think that they would agree with your statement that you just made regarding authority? Do you think they view it in a similar way?
Oh, yeah. In the sense that the prophecies, the similarities, the legalities at the time, they would agree with everything there. Yeah.
Okay. So if someone meant by authority not what you said, that in actual fact, from the end of the prophet's life going forward, the Quran views the Torah and Injil as ongoing, fully authoritative, including legally authoritative, that they are to be followed, that the Torah is to be followed for the Jews as a legal authority going forward, and the same for the Injil for the Christians. And even if they hear about Islam, they are not required to follow the Quran or Islamic law. What would you say in response to that?
It's not my position.
Yeah, but do you think
But
it's wrong?
Well, if it's not my position, I'm not advocating for it.
Okay,
But again,
so it's wrong. So
again,
if somebody has
Jake,
that position, if somebody has that position and they say when they present the Islamic dilemma that is included in their definition of authority, then would my argument that I've presented refute that?
I don't know. I need to look into that more because I haven't really entertained that because I haven't heard it. I mean, I can't speak for people on what they think. I've not heard David Wood or Avery or anyone present that. You've had the debate with Avery. Maybe he said those things. Maybe he said that authority, legally speaking, is forever binding according to the Quran. I don't know. Maybe he did.
Okay. So I'll show you this. I'm gonna play a clip for you. It's literally 20 seconds
secret
long.
insights.
What's that?
Nice. Oh, you're showing us insights to the debate.
No. I'm showing you something Avery said previously. So let's take a look.
Yeah, but again, do you know if he misspoke? Do you know if you see what I mean?
No,
you don't know that. Well, if you don't know that, you should ask him. That's what
I'm saying that I know that it's very clear the context and what's being spoken about. It's directly on this issue. If you saw the debate with Daniel Hakikachu, if anybody saw it, they can go and watch it. If you saw the debate with Daniel Hakikachu and who I'm no fan of, by the way, and Avery, they spent a long period of time discussing Quran 1094, right? And Quran 1094 is typically brought up under the framework of the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma. And Daniel is basically saying, hey, Avery, this is the context. People can go back and watch.
But
Daniel's saying, oh, wait, in 1094, are you trying to say that the Torah and Injil are fully authoritative for even Muslims like the Prophet Muhammad and Muslims, such that they need to go and look at what those previous scriptures say, even in regard to legal matters? And if the Quran does not match up with it, then it's somehow false. And that the Quran, even further, not just letting the Jews and Christians judge by their own legal authorities in their books, that the Quran's legal matters actually have to fully match up to what is mentioned in the Torah and Injil. And he says yes.
So is he going to say explicitly legal authority, or is he going to say authority?
You're going to hear it's in the context of a legal matter.
Well, yeah, but does he make it clear he's referring to legal matters?
It's very clear. It's extremely clear. We're going to play it. It's 20 seconds, Chris.
Okay. After we've done this, can we talk about the substance of the argument, though?
No,
prophecies and the similarities.
This is
I've already said, like, I could concede all this. I don't, but I could just say exactly. Right on all this.
I'm not interested. I'm not interested in coming here for Jake. You're making an argument, and I'll concede it for the sake of argument. No. I want to know, is Jake's argument actually on target to what people are saying?
But it literally contributes nothing to the Islamic dilemma.
It does. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how it has.
Wait, Jake.
How it has implications. Hold on. I'm going to show you how it has implications for the inspiration and preservation parts. I'm going to show you that. But we're not going to jump over that, because this is the groundwork that furnishes my point for the discussion regarding inspiration and preservation. You think that they're not connected at all, and I'm going to show you how they are connected. But I'm not going to do that before I skip over what I'm actually arguing for.
It kind of sounds like you're just trying to argue against the man, not the argument.
No. Who determines what the Islamic dilemma is?
The person who's presenting it, so me.
Exactly. So if I'm dealing with Chris...
So why are you bringing up Avery?
Because I'm not arguing against you. This stream
here... You are arguing against me. I'm on your stream, Jake.
No. Then you're confused, soldier. You're confused about what this is about.
When you argue with someone, you need to give them the benefit of the doubt that they themselves are the one presenting the argument. If you want to debate Avery again, you can go debate Avery again.
Exactly.
But I'm here, right? So
Yeah,
let me
but
present
you
the
made a
Islamic
claim-
dilemma, which we
you-
haven't
you
even
made
got
a
into yet.
claim- You made a claim that this is the way the Islamic dilemma is presented. Then you made a claim that, other people, they don't present it the way that you are. You're making the claim that I'm not targeting the Islamic dilemma. And I'm showing you that I'm targeting the Islamic dilemma in the normal manner in which everyone else presents the argument.
Everyone else presents it that way, do they?
Yeah.
There's no alternative opinions.
What's that?
You know for a while there's people have different opinions. People think the Islamic dilemma is who will be made uppermost. So Al-Man Ayah 55, right? Like there are people that have different ways of arguing this. Like I said at the very beginning, the Islamic dilemma is a branching, broad umbrella term for lots of different points. So people can present it however they want to. And I'm presenting it to you right now in a particular way. And I want you as a da'i to be able to defend against that. Because that would show me that you are confident, that you have good answers in doing so.
And I have no
I've
problem
already told you, first of all, if I go with your legal authority argument, I say it falls at this point, and I demonstrated that, and you agreed with me. Then you insisted, no, I want to talk about how Avery and David present the argument. And I'm saying it doesn't matter how they present the argument. This is how I'm presenting the argument.
It does, because as you said,
you want to debate
if I'm debating against a particular person who has a particular way of presenting the argument, then if I make an argument against the way that they present it, then my argument, and it hits, then that means my argument is sound. That's how it works.
But it doesn't conclude. Like the premises don't lead to the conclusion.
It does.
The conclusion for you is the Islamic dilemma is wrong, but your premises with legal authority have nothing to do with that.
What I mean by that is the normal manner in which the Islamic dilemma is presented. If somebody comes along and says, exactly, that's why we're going through this now, for me to prove you wrong and show you the normal way in which the Islamic dilemma is presented. That's the point.
I think you want to debate David and Avery again, and you're trying to do it through me. Why not just debate me? Why not just debate me?
Did I ever say that I was inviting you on for a debate on the Islamic dilemma?
Absolutely fine. It's a discussion, no problem. But at least let me give you my reasons, and then you address the reasons.
You did.
Yes, and I addressed it. And you even agreed with me. You've already conceded that the legal authority is still binding today. You've already conceded this.
No, I didn't. See, now
you literally did. Jake, it's your own live stream. It's your own live stream, and you said yes. They are to follow the guidance and light.
Chris, don't be disingenuous. What I said was that each person, including Jews and Christians, are going to be judged based upon the amount of guidance and light that they received. That goes.
So they have to follow the Torah and the Injil.
No, that's not.
The Quran says the Torah and Injil of guidance and light.
I said to you, first of all, that we were talking about people who were actually presented with Islam. That's who we're talking about.
Right. So there are people that are not presented with Islam.
We're not talking about the person.
So it's still binding.
What's that?
It's still binding then.
No,
there are people in South America that have not been invited to Islam.
Right. And have they heard of the Torah?
And guess what? They're Christians. So they have the Torah and they have the Injil.
Have those people on the Amazon heard of the Torah and Injil?
I don't know particularly about the Amazon, but in South America, there are people who have not been invited to Islam yet.
Chris, you're not really proving anything. You're just saying, Jake, if somebody never heard of Islam, will they be judged for...
Never been invited to Islam.
Yeah, never been invited to Islam. Are those people going to be judged and held accountable for having to follow Islam? No, of course not. Just as you don't believe... I would think
that's not what I'm saying, Jake. I'm saying that the Torah and the gospel ought to be followed still for those groups.
I already responded to that.
What was your response? You agreed with me. And then you realized what that meant, and then you had to retract and be like, oh, you should look at it through eschatology.
No, not at all.
Heaven and hell lenses. And it's like,
no, not at all. That's been my argument from the beginning, because what you don't get is, as I already said, even people that have heard of Islam and been invited to Islam, the Jews and Christians, they can still follow their scriptures under an Islamic protectorate in an Islamic society, as long as they pay the jizya. This is traditional Islamic law. They can still follow those things, but it's not seen as that they should be following them or that they are following them and going to make it to paradise accordingly for following them. So I'm doing you one better. I'm even furthering your argument. I'm saying even people who have heard of Islam, Jews and Christians living in an Islamic society, if they pay the jizya, they can follow their so-called Torah and Injil, but that doesn't mean that them following it is a good thing and that they're going to make it to paradise. That's the point.
Okay, the Christians and Jews who have not been invited to Islam, according to the Quran, should they follow the Torah and the Injil?
No.
Really, no.
Yeah, no.
So okay, according to the Quran, the Jews have to judge by the Torah, the legal rulings and the Mosaic law.
That's the point we're talking about now.
Okay. Wait. So they have to follow the Mosaic law
Look what you just said.
Because it is binding. Wait. Will that lead them into Jannah?
No.
At the time of Muhammad?
No.
So it's 610. Muhammad has become a prophet. Should the Jews continue
You're
following the
walking
Torah?
right into it, brother. You're walking right into it now.
No, you just
said. So look, you just did what all of these other Christian apologists do. You just said that according to these verses that say to judge by the Torah or judge by the Injil, you just said out of your own mouth that this includes the legal rulings.
Yes, like I've said this whole time at the beginning, that's totally the case. 548.
Those are outlawed now. Those are no longer applicable.
From an Islamic paradigm, no, I'm saying they're still valid, but I'm saying only to those who have not been invited to Islam, right?
Okay, those who have been invited to Islam, are those verses abrogated?
From an Islamic paradigm from the Quran, yes. What I'm saying to you, I've already said this.
You're the only one who holds this position. You're the only
great.
one.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm the only one. I'm very special.
Yeah.
Right. So in South America, for example, there are Christians who have not been invited to Islam. According to the Quran, do they still go to heaven if they follow the law in the gospel?
Not necessarily.
What? Not necessarily. What? Does Allah flip a coin? Like, why not necessarily?
Because it depends what you mean by the gospel. It depends what you mean by what they're following.
What is the Injil?
Hold on a second. It depends on what you mean by what they're following in it. But you don't understand what you just did, Chris. You just took out some of the favorite verses as part of the Islamic Dilemma, Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verses 43 up to 48. Some of the favorite verses constantly argued back and forth. What's that?
That's some of my favorites. I love them. I love those verses.
Okay, exactly. So those verses, which are constantly argued, why are you saying that they're your favorite verses when you're now admitting that according to the Quran, they're abrogated after the time of the Prophet Muhammad for anyone who has been invited to Islam?
Because it has no effect on the Islamic Dilemma.
It does, because you said that
point.
Those are your favorite arguments from the Islamic Dilemma.
Because those verses don't just talk about legal authority. They make it absolutely clear that a confirmation is mentioned. So Ayah 46 talks about Musaddiq, confirmation. You can see in 47, the Christians don't stand on anything unless they hold by the gospel. What happens if they don't hold by the gospel? They're to be punished. So yeah, that has something to do with legal authority.
The first thing you mentioned was legal authority when you mentioned
are those verses only about legal authority?
According to me, yes, they're about legal authority.
Only about legal authority.
They're about laws in the context. For example, 543 is in the context of law.
Yes,
548 is in the context of law. All of that section there is in the context of law. Primarily, if you wanted to make for example, if you wanted to make an argument where you said, Jake, well, no, I think it's actually including this other aspect. I'm actually happy to go with that because it's only going to make my argument stronger. However, at the least, we would agree that those verses there are primarily about law, correct?
No, I think it's just more broader than that. I think he gives examples of it, but
so 543 you don't think is primarily about law with the Jews not wanting to?
No. 543 to 548. When you include other aspects of it, when you look at 46 and 47, I think they're clearly not just in the case of legal authorities and legal rulings. It includes other things as well.
It does include legal rulings.
It does include them, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
but I'm saying it's not just limited to them.
But that's the point. So if somebody presents the Islamic dilemma argument and focuses on Surah Al-Ma'idah, chapter 5, verses 43 to 48, including legal rulings, and they don't hold your position that those legal rulings are still binding upon Jews and Christians even today, after the time of the Prophet Muhammad, even after they've been invited to Islam, then my argument regarding authority targets them and that particular argument, doesn't it?
I don't know. I'm not really convinced that they actually hold the position that you think they do.
Okay, so why
should we watch this clip?
Why don't we just stop talking
let's see.
for 20 seconds and play the damn clip? I mean, that would be helpful, wouldn't it?
That's a way of putting it. Yes. Let's watch the clip.
Thank you.
Do they? So, for example, if the Prophet ﷺ or someone had a doubt about whether alcohol is prohibited, do they go? Would they have to go to the Bible and see, okay, is alcohol prohibited, and then based off of that, take whatever the Bible says? Is that what you believe in?
Can I respond?
Yep.
Okay. Matter of fact, let me just answer you fully. Yes, I do believe that. Now, let me respond in full. Daniel.
Wow. So there he says, in response to
that was it.
Yeah, in response to a specific legal question. The question is, if the Prophet Muhammad or someone else is referring to the, let me finish. If the Prophet Muhammad or someone else referring to the Muslims, based upon Quran 1094, were to have a question about whether or not alcohol is prohibited or it's permissible, they have to go to the Bible and see what the ruling is in the Bible. And whatever the Bible says about that, they must take. So the Bible is a legal authority over the Quran because the Quran must match up with the legal rulings from the Bible regarding alcohol.
Okay, so you just added stuff there that wasn't said. But first of all, it was never said in that clip that he was talking about for Muslims. It just said if Muslims were to ask about whether, but from 1094 is in the context of going to other people. So is he referring to the legal ruling about alcohol for the other people? Because if it is, then that would make sense. And the fact that if you wanted to know,
did you just listen to what he said? He said,
"Bro, you played me a 20-second clip. That's not enough to figure out what the context is for that."
It is.
Jake, why are you still?
Do they? So, for example, if the Prophet ﷺ or someone had a doubt about whether alcohol is prohibited, do they go? Would they have to go to the Bible and see, okay, is alcohol prohibited, and then based off of that, take whatever the Bible says? Is that what you believe in?
Can I respond?
For who?
Yep.
Okay. Matter of fact, let me just answer you fully. Yes, I do believe that. Now, let me respond in full.
Pause it there. First of all, we don't actually see what the response in full is, so this is disingenuous. But second of all, for who?
Answered yes.
For who? Okay, who is being talked about here?
Good. It's talking about the Muslims.
If Muhammad had a question about the legal ruling for alcohol, who would he ask? That depends entirely upon who the legal ruling is for. If it's for the Jews and Christians, guess who Muhammad ought to ask? The Jews and the Christians.
Chris, I think you're missing the point where he says, whatever they say, that those people must accept and take.
What do you mean?
Let's listen to the last 10 seconds here.
Can I respond?
Off of that, would they have to go to the Bible and see, okay, is alcohol prohibited, and then based off of that, take whatever the Bible says? Is that what
it says? Based off of that, hold on a second. Based off of that, they must take whatever it says. It's in the context of 1094. Avery is making the point that 1094 proves that the Bible is an authority, and he's saying it's actually an authority over the Quran. That's his argument based on 1094. Daniel's response is,
I agree that the Quran.
Yeah, and Daniel's response is, dude, are you saying that it's a total authority such that you must go to it and whatever it says, the Quran has to match up with? That's his response.
For the Jews and Christians, yes. That is the point.
That's not what Daniel's talking about. He's talking about for the Muslims.
Well, that wasn't in the clip you showed me.
Bro.
Avery literally says, let me respond in full, and then you cut it.
Oh my God. So here's the thing. If in this clip, Avery is actually referring to for the Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad and the Muslims, then is he correct or incorrect?
Jake, you're fighting the man. You're not fighting the argument.
It is the argument. The argument is based upon the man.
Jake, my advice to you is, if this really keeps you up at night, get in contact with Avery and just ask him. Like,
I know
mean,
his position.
the point is that you're trying to get me to share your interpretation of a 20-second clip where you cut off the context at the end, and you then want to argue that.
There's nothing additional.
My name's not Avery. I'm not American. You know, I live in England. I'm a long way away, across the pond. You want to know the answer to your question? Go ask Avery.
Yeah, but even when I asked you a hypothetical, you refused to answer it because you said, "Oh, I don't know if anyone says that." You refused to even answer. I don't know.
Because it's not relevant to the Islamic dilemma, which is what I've been telling you for ages, and you're still not talking about the Islamic dilemma.
The Islamic dilemma is not based upon Chris's idiosyncratic reading of the Quran and the Islamic dilemma. It's based.
So I can't make an argument to you. I'm not allowed to. I don't have authority.
No, you can.
I lack the authority to make an argument.
I'm going to shred your argument.
You don't even know what it is yet. Like I've given a rough outline, and that's it.
My point to you is that the Christians making the argument regarding the authority do not believe that the Torah and Injil are no longer authoritative, meaning that Jews and Christians are not supposed to follow them today. This is the big question. Even forgetting legal authority, are Jews and Christians, according to the Quran, supposed to follow the Torah and Injil today, even after they are invited to Islam? I am saying no.
You have to add that caveat.
Hold on a second. I'm saying no. You're also agreeing that the answer is no. And everyone else who's making the Islamic dilemma argument is saying no. Jake and Chris are wrong. The Jews are supposed to follow the Torah today, even after they're invited to Islam. The Christians are supposed to follow the.
Again, you're equivocating on the word authority.
What's that?
You obviously agree that when a Jew reads Deuteronomy 6:4, "Hear, O Israel, Lord your God is one," that is binding on the Jews. They have to follow that. Oh, why? Because the same author that revealed the Torah revealed the Quran. Do you disagree with that?
Dude, you're moving away from the point. The point is
no, because you're equivocating.
Authority
in what sense, Jake?
Authority means in terms of following. What are the Jews
following what?
Jews and Christians, what are they supposed to follow today, according to the Quran, if they're invited to Islam? What are they supposed to follow?
Are they supposed to follow the theology in their books that Allah sent? Are they yes or no?
Dude, I just asked you a question and you responded with a question.
Yes, because if you answer this, it'll explain everything. Yes or no?
No, I'm asking you, are they supposed to follow?
Is that an answer, or are you refusing to answer?
Are the Jews and Christian, are the Jews, let's deal with the Jews. Are the Jews supposed to follow the Torah today or the Quran today if they are invited to Islam? Which one are they supposed to follow according to the Quran?
They are supposed to believe in both. And by doing so, when they see statements that say there is only one God, for example, they're meant to follow both.
They're meant to follow both? So,
of course wait. Are Muslims, right? Listen. Are Muslims required to believe in the Torah?
Yeah, the original Torah, yes.
Okay, so if you're a Jew and you believe in the Torah, now see, this is a question, right? What is the Torah? What's the Injil? That's really important. So if it's, say, for example, what we have today of the Torah is actually what Allah revealed. A Jew is following it, right? He's following it faithfully. He believes in Deuteronomy 6:4, believes in all this stuff. He then converts to be a Muslim. Does he now have to reject Deuteronomy 6:4?
No, but he now has.
Is it authoritative to it? Is it authoritative because it's from Allah?
I was finishing. He now has to reject certain aspects of that Torah. For example, legal rulings, which the Quran says certain things were prohibited for the Jews, and now, according to the Quran, are no longer prohibited. Do you agree?
Okay. So let's go with that. It is authoritative. It is authoritative. Yes, like in that sense, but it is authoritative, right, for the Jew in other senses, and you've accepted that. So yes, it is still inspired.
Exactly, it's partially authoritative, my brother. Partially.
No, I'd say in regards to the things that the Quran doesn't specifically address, it's all of them.
Is it fully authoritative or partially authoritative?
No. You're confusing things. At this time, the legal authority in particular isn't binding, right? Because the 21st century has been violent to Islam.
So it's only partially authoritative.
No, in the 7th century, it was fully authoritative. That was my whole point.
During the time of the Prophet, 929 going forward, is it fully authoritative or partially authoritative?
If he's been invited to Islam, it's partially authoritative.
Okay, there we go. Now I can do a whole rhetoric campaign like you want to do, Chris, and say you've just conceded the Islamic dilemma because you are saying
Jake, I've been saying this for the whole
because
debate.
you are saying that
discussion.
the Torah is not fully authoritative, meaning not everything in it has to be followed. It's only partly authoritative.
Well,
That's your
again,
position.
you've already conceded that it is actually still fully legally authoritative to many people, millions, if not billions of people in the world.
I don't
So
believe that. Sorry,
I don't
brother,
know what you want me to do.
I don't believe that.
You already said it on stream.
You just said it's only partly authoritative, Chris. You said it's partly
Yes,
authoritative.
are partly
for anyone who's been
authoritative
invited to Islam.
now, Jake. That's the key
Exactly.
thing.
And that's the debate, dude. The debate is not Islamic Dilemma, 7th century or before that.
No, it is. That is the whole argument.
No, it's
the whole
not.
argument is 7th century. Because we have
Islamic
the
Dilemma. Hold on. Islamic Dilemma is not relevant for us today in the 21st century.
No, it absolutely is.
It's not about
That's,
whether or not the scriptures we have today are inspired, preserved, and authoritative. It's not about that.
Yes, because again, if the Quran in the 7th century affirms their legal authority, Jake, what does that mean? It means we can look at our scriptures that are the same that they had back then, and we can be like, oh, look, the Quran, Muhammad affirmed this legal ruling, this legal ruling, this legal ruling as being fully authoritative. I'm
talking about today. I'm talking about today.
It doesn't matter. Your religion already confirmed
the Islamic
it in the 7th
dilemma
century.
Changes. The Islamic dilemma changes.
No. The reason it's a dilemma is because at a point in time, Muhammad agreed with all the legal rulings in our scriptures, and you've agreed to that. Your argument is that after a period of time, he changes it.
He agreed with them? What do you mean he agreed with them?
He fully affirms them. There's nothing in the Quran that says you are not to fully affirm the legal rulings in the early period. There's nothing in there that says that.
Okay, so
for example,
so when he says, go ahead.
For example, 285 makes it very clear there are Jews that are not following their own Torah properly from a legal perspective. He condemns them for it. They will be punished for it. So, okay, Surah 6, Ayah 91 and 92. That's legal. Yes. So again, he's confirming this. This fits perfectly in line with Surah Al. Okay, and let's also look at 691 and 92 because it's the same thing said again.
Okay, go ahead.
Muhammad is being told by Allah to say to the Jews, what are you doing with the scripture that was given to Moses? You guys make it into parts. So in other words, look, you have the scripture in your time. It's all authoritative to you because how dare you do this? This is your scriptures. It's from Allah. You don't have any right to edit them or modify them or take them into parts. The very next verse says that the Quran, what has been given to Muhammad, is a confirmation, a musaddiq, over those very scriptures that they make into parts. So you can't take parts of the Mosaic law, of the Torah. You can't do it.
Okay, so Quran 285, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 85 says, yeah, what's that?
We'll go with that one first. Yeah, I gave you two passages.
That's the first one first one you mentioned. So 285 says that the Jews at the time of the prophet were it says believing in a part of a book and not accepting or disbelieving in a part of the book. And you agree the context is a legal context, correct?
Yes. And does that mean they have to fully follow the Mosaic law?
Hold on a second, soldier. You said it's in a legal context, and in that sense, believe is referring to following, correct? The Jews are following a particular aspect of the law, and they're also, even though they know it's in their book, they're also not following a particular aspect of the law, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So at that point, according to you and your reading, the Jews are being criticized for not following the entirety of the Torah.
Yep.
Okay. And then that changes to you according to 929 going forward. Now the Jews don't need to follow all of their Torah?
If they've been invited to Islam. But the Jews, as you and I have agreed, are still actually binding to the Mosaic law, even today, if they have not been invited to Islam.
Okay, good, Chris. So now I'm telling you that David, Avery, Sam, all these other people they don't have the nuance that you do. They're saying that Quran 285, also their reading of Quran 1094, and the verses in Surah Al-Ma'idah, they don't make a division between the early period, which when these are fully legally binding and authoritative, versus a later period. So I am targeting their argument saying, hold on a second, I'm targeting their argument when they have the reading of 285 that you just gave, but they don't think it's abrogated in any sense later on. Do you understand?
Okay, so first of all, I'm writing a book on this. It's called The Islamic Dilemma. It'll be out hopefully March, April time, and this will have all these points in. So,
and you're going to give me a free copy, right?
If you would like one, I would give you a free copy. I appreciate that. But my point is, it doesn't really matter if there's disagreements. Muslims argue against the Trinity in a whole bunch of ways, but I don't be like, hang on a second, you're presenting this argument against the Trinity in a way that Jake doesn't. I'd be like, well, so what?
It does, Chris. You guys literally do the same thing. And in response to the Islamic dilemma, hold on. In response to the Islamic dilemma, haven't you seen all of your buddies say, look, they have different responses to the Islamic dilemma, which shows that they're actually confused. There's no good response to the Islamic dilemma. It's the same exact point. When I'm debating something, hold on a second, Chris. When I'm debating you, if I'm making an argument that I made against David and Avery, which applies to David and Avery, but doesn't apply to Chris, then I wouldn't make the same argument against Chris. I would make a different argument, just as you are going to respond differently to me than you would to John Fontaine or Dean Responds. That's how it works.
Yeah. So the difference here is that I don't think that the legal authority issue, if you think of it as an issue, I don't think it is. I don't think it has any relevance to the Islamic dilemma. So
it does. Whereas the people are using the argument the way that I just said.
Okay. Whereas with the Islamic community, broadly speaking, the different perspectives that you guys hold on the Islamic dilemma, that's a different issue because all of that is actually central to the Islamic dilemma. I think John Fontaine's position is central to the Islamic dilemma. Your position, okay, not the authority stuff that you've introduced, but if you were to explain what you think the Torah is, what you think the Injil is, whether you think in general confirmation or conscious edits, if you were to go into that, then that would be central to the Islamic dilemma. But legal authority.
Why is it not central to the Islamic dilemma? Because Chris doesn't hold the same view?
No, because you can just ignore it. Like I said, David Wood, I think, categorized it very well. You can just run the Islamic dilemma argument from inspiration and preservation.
Chris, then you would have to admit that the way that they presented it all of these years has been wrong. That's the whole point.
I don't think you've actually characterized their argument properly.
Okay, so let's listen to David Wood now.
Is that what you believe?
Okay, let's go to David Wood.
Can I respond?
Yep.
Okay. Matter of fact, let me just answer you fully. Yes, I do believe that. Now, let me respond in full. Daniel.
So, by the way, David now is going to be responding basically to my argument and what I'm saying regarding Avery, and he's going to say nobody really holds that position, and he's going to tell you what his position is.
You're representing it as well. The Islamic dilemma is claiming that the Torah and the gospel are legal authorities over Muslims and Muslims have to obey them and not the Quran. Okay, you can run with that. And we're all going to say that's not what any of us has ever said at all. Right. So try again. Better luck next time. Interesting. I wish I'd understood that because then I could have just focused on that and how stupid that is and how it's not anything I've ever said or thought.
Okay.
Okay.
So
at least David doesn't say that then.
Exactly. He doesn't. Oh. I've never. hold on a second.
Okay, so is my view briefly in line with David?
Chris, you don't understand the three different views. Let me go big screen here, maybe to help you. There are three different views. There's the retarded Avery view, which is that the Torah and Injil are even legally authoritative over the Quran. That's the way that he presented against Daniel. Now that he, hold on a second, hold on, let me just finish. I'm giving you the three views. Now that he's been busted on that, he's thrown that out. Then we're left with two views. Chris's view, which is in the original period, the Torah and Injil were accepted as legal authorities for the Jews and the Christians to follow. But then at a certain point in time, 929 or some period around then going forward, they're no longer legally authoritative. Jews and Christians who are invited to Islam must follow Islamic law. That's the Chris view. The mainstream Islamic dilemma view, which is the view of David, which is the view of Sam Shamoun, which is now the view of Avery after he's backed down from his other view, is that no, Chris, the early period that you're talking about, that never changed. Jews and Christians, according to the Quran, are still legally binding, and their scriptures are still legally authoritative for the Jews and Christians to follow today. The Jews must follow the Torah and all of the laws in it. The Christians must follow the Injil and all of the laws in it. Even those who have heard about Islam and been invited to Islam, their texts are still legally binding and authoritative. It's these different groups of people. The Muslims are supposed to follow the Quran. Jews supposed to follow the Torah. Christians supposed to follow the Injil. That is the mainstream view. That is David Wood's view. And my authority argument is targeting their view.
Jake, I appreciate the way that you've presented it really did catch people off guard. I think it caught David off guard. And I really liked the way you presented it because I thought you did a really good job. But it really has nothing to do with the Islamic dilemma.
It does.
No, Jake, you're focusing laser precision, focusing in on the fact that this is what Avery said or this is what David said, and that's it. You're arguing against those people. They're
presenting the Islamic dilemma.
Right. Okay, so you're arguing against their version, right? Which I don't necessarily think is the right version. I don't think
you don't think they believe in that.
Properly.
Hold on a second, Chris.
I've never heard them say that. So I'm literally taking your view
seriously.
Based off
that's really what you believe.
The first one, I'm pretty sure the way I understand that is not the way you understand it. And the second one, he's like, David is even telling you, like he doesn't hold that. So
no, I know that's the first view. That's the first view. David doesn't hold. I already said that. The
first view? What do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, the first view, which was Avery's original view, which is that the Torah and Injil are legally binding and authoritative even over Muslims. David doesn't hold that view and never did. Never held that view. I've already said that.
Okay, fine.
But David holds the view. Chris, how are you not understanding this? You're dividing Islam into two periods. You're dividing a first period and a second period. The first early period of Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 85, and your interpretation of that, and your interpretation of 543 to 548, David and others are saying that never changed. Their understanding of that is going forward from that time all the way up until now, such that those texts are legally binding and authoritative for each respective group. That's their position. You don't think that that's their position?
I don't believe it is. I mean, I'll ask them after this live stream, but
okay.
I don't
think
it is.
And if it is, does my argument target their point?
Their point, but it doesn't target the Islamic dilemma.
If they define in the Islamic dilemma the authority aspect to include what I just said, then that targets the Islamic dilemma.
Did not David Wood say to you at the end of the debate that you had with him that you can just run it from the inspiration and preservation points?
Dude, I already agree with that. You're missing the whole
Then you are
point.
then. Okay, great. So you've just accepted. No, you've missed the point. You've missed the point that you don't need to argue authority at all.
Yeah,
it's just something useful.
You need to come out and admit, wow, Jake actually bent this over. Okay, he really worked this over and showed us. Hold on, he really showed us that the way we've been presenting the argument for 20 plus years has been wrong this entire time. Our interpretation of these verses of the Quran with respect to the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma, we have interpreted wrong the entire time. We needed Jake and Chris from Speaker's Corner to come forward and tell us that we were wrong about this. And now, okay, we're going to modify the argument. We're just going to go based off of inspiration and preservation. And now we're going to run the argument off of that. If they did this and they admitted this in the clearest terms, then I would move on to going to refute them about the inspiration preservation. But I'm not going to do that with disingenuous people who are not willing to concede that their interpretation and application of the argument has been wrong all along.
Jake, you are more interested in getting one over Avery and David than you are in addressing the Islamic dilemma.
That is the
If
Islamic
you-
dilemma.
No, it's
David Wood
some
was
weird
presenting
sub
the
point.
Islamic dilemma before you even thought of anything about it.
Yeah, he's a lot older than me. That's fair.
Exactly.
But
So
Jake,
if I'm targeting the Islamic dilemma, does
You're not, though.
the Islamic dilemma, is it what Chris presents, or is it the standard way in which it's been presented for 20 plus years?
there is no standard way of presenting it. It's I've already told you that there's wait, even in your debate with David, you even preempted different ways he could present the dilemma because you're aware of them. Yes, you did. In your presentation, you were like, what if he says that Allah's words cannot be changed? Because that's one way of presenting the dilemma. What if he says about the uppermost groups? That's another way of presenting the dilemma. You literally address different forms and different strands of the Islamic dilemma.
Three key aspects: inspiration, preservation, and authority. Those are the three core aspects of the Islamic dilemma, according to David Wood. And
you've already agreed. You only need two of them.
Hold on a second. I can show you from the beginning of time, since David has been presenting the argument, he's always been presenting it this way. And what the difference is, what verses under each category are used. Chris might use a certain amount of verses for preservation, and David might use different verses. Sure, that can happen. But I'm saying, regarding the Islamic dilemma, it has those three aspects. David, under the authority aspect, lists 543 to 548, lists 285, lists 1094, and on. He lists other verses. Those core verses that David uses with respect to the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma, he says the authority proves the full authority of the Torah for the Jews at the time of the prophet going forward until now, the full authority of the Injil from the time of the prophet until now, including the legally binding aspects of it, and each group is supposed to follow the laws within it. So when I present and respond to that, you say, but Jake, you're not dealing with the Islamic dilemma. Yes, I am. I'm dealing with the Islamic dilemma as has been presented by David Wood, Sam Shamoun, Avery, and every other popular Christian apologist that speaks in English on the topic.
Okay, I don't know why English, but anyway, yeah, you don't accept the Islamic dilemma as an argument from anybody. You should. You should accept anyone who presents that argument, and you should be able to deal with it because you are a Muslim and you think it's wrong. But for some reason, you're just caught up with, no, I need to get their perspective on it, refute their perspective, which again, I don't even think is their perspective. And it's like you're actually okay with losing the Islamic dilemma argument as long as we accept that you are right on legal authority. It's really weird. I don't get why you
don't
do
understand the implication for it. You don't understand the implication for it. The point
no,
is,
wait. You
basically calling me a liar. You're saying, Jake, you're lying when you say that you're targeting the Islamic dilemma. You're not actually targeting the Islamic dilemma. If every popular Christian apologist who has been using the Islamic dilemma argument and always mentions inspiration, preservation, and authority, and has a particular characterization of authority, and my argument targets that, how can you lie and say that I'm not targeting the Islamic dilemma? I am. I'm targeting the aspect of authority in the way that they've always presented it. Now, if you want to turn around and say, Jake, okay, you got them on the authority bit, you got them on that, so they have to stop arguing and presenting it that way. And now let's move on to inspiration and preservation. I would say, okay, Chris, but you're not doing that. You're saying, Jake, you're actually distorting it. You're not actually arguing against the Islamic dilemma, even though I'm showing you that every single one of them have always presented the Islamic dilemma in this manner. You don't see the difference?
I don't get why you can't just debate the Islamic dilemma. At this point, I don't get why you
see that I am debating the Islamic dilemma.
Well, no, you're not. You're debating the Avery and David legal authority question.
That's the point. Until you can say that, Jake, yes, your argument does actually target the Islamic dilemma in the authority aspect, in the normal manner in which in the way it's been presented, I'm not moving on to anything, because then I take you as a dishonest actor. You're a dishonest actor.
Well, I don't really think I'm being dishonest. I mean, I think I'm being pretty honest. I haven't called you a liar, by the way. I don't think you're a liar.
Yeah,
I
because you're
just think
saying,
that
Jake, you're
you,
not targeting the Islamic dilemma, and I'm telling you how
Yeah.
I am, and you're saying, no, nobody believes that.
yeah, I think you're mistaken. I think you feel as if this is actually a part
It
of
was
the
actually
Islamic
said
dilemma.
right in front
Well-
of you on your own stream, dude.
Well, this stream?
No, on a stream that you were on.
Well, I don't know what you're referring to.
I can show you that. You want me to show you that where it's done right in front of you? Let's do that.
Wait, sorry. Say the point again.
Clip, and then we need.
Oh,
David
okay.
has
Right. What am I
presented
supposed?
his position right in front of you on a live stream
Okay.
in response to my argument.
Right.
So,
So how does this?
But I'm going to play clips. Okay, how about this? Let's deal with the hypothetical since you don't want to accept my characterization. If you speak to David,
So we're not playing that video.
No, because you're going to just say, oh, Jake, you're misrepresenting, or you didn't play 30 minutes of the clip, so now we don't know the context. I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. I want to ask you
Okay,
this
all right.
hypothetical question.
Okay.
If a Christian, including David, let's go with David with the example. If David tells you, Chris, yes, I always present the authority aspect of the dilemma, and the authority aspect includes that the Torah is a full authority for the Jews, including legal rulings, and the same thing for the Injil for Christians, even going forward after the time of the Prophet Muhammad. If they say that to you, they say that to you,
and in the context of those who have not been invited to Islam. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No. In the context,
see, this is the point. You have to have caveats.
You're missing the point, dude. We're talking about the normal person. We're not talking about the outskirts or exceptions to the rule. We're talking about the normal people. People who are presented
Well, actually, this
with
would probably
Islam.
be the majority.
Hold on. People who are presented with Islam and know about Islam enough to judge whether or not it's true. Hold on a second. Let me finish. People who are presented with Islam, okay? If David says to you, even the people who are presented with Islam, if they are Jews, they are supposed to follow the Torah and the legal rulings in it and not the Quran. And he says the same about Christians with the Injil. Then does my argument target his position?
If that's his position. But is that the Islamic dilemma?
I asked you the question. I asked you for a
I
yes
answered
or no
you. I said if that's his position, and I said in return, I asked you a question.
If
Is
that's his
that the
position,
Islamic
what?
dilemma?
Yes or no?
Is that the Islamic dilemma?
You didn't answer the question. If
I
that's
did.
his
I said if
position,
that's his position. So now
If
answer
that's
my
his
question.
position, what?
Is
Yes
that
or
the Islamic
no?
dilemma?
You didn't answer the question. If that's his position, yes or
I already
no?
told you. I don't think it is. Right now, so
you're not dealing with the hypothetical. You're so
is
afraid
that the
to
Islamic
answer.
dilemma?
You're so afraid to answer because you think, wait a second, Jake, he has a clip in the background. So once I say yes, and then we prove that this is David's position, now it's going to be a problem. That's why I'm saying you're disingenuous. You won't even answer the hypothetical question. I'm asking you, if David does hold that position, does my argument disprove his point?
His point, if he did, which I'm not sure that he does, and even then,
I'm asking
it's a
you
lot of caveats
hypothetically.
that you yourself have agreed with.
I'm asking you hypothetically.
I just gave you an answer.
No, you
You
didn't.
listen?
You're not saying yes or no. You just keep repeating if that is
Jake,
the case.
Jake,
But you're not saying yes
I'm
or
not
no.
I'm not ChatGPT. I don't need to answer yes or no. I can answer
Exactly.
with
You
the fullness of my
refuse
words.
because you know.
No,
you
Jake,
know
I gave you an answer.
You didn't. What was
Jake,
the answer?
if
Was
we
it
get
yes
to the
or
end
no?
of this live stream and we
Was
haven't
it-
talked about the
was it yes or
prophecies or
no?
the stories of prophets,
Was the answer
I'm going
yes
to
or
conclude
no?
this was intentional.
What was the
If
answer?
we get
yes
to the
or
end,
no?
if we get to the end of this live stream and we haven't talked about the
Yeah.
prophecies or the stories of the prophets, I'm going to
Mhm.
say that you did this intentionally. You
Yeah,
understand
and
that?
you know what I'm going to say? If Chris
Okay.
refuses to answer a hypothetical question,
I did.
yes or no, I'm going to. No, what was the answer? I didn't hear it.
If that's actually his position, which I don't think it is,
If it is-
and if
If it is, then what? If it is, then what?
I'm not. Jake, you asked me for my position, and then when I start to say it, you interrupt me.
Because you're
I
not
said,
answering.
Jake, if it's his actual position, which I don't think it is, if you add a caveat, which wasn't present in your debate, which is that it's only talking about those who are invited to Islam because those who have not yet been are still required to follow the Torah and Injil that you agreed with earlier in this debate. Okay, those are the caveats.
God,
and then, wait, there's one more. There's one more. Even then, you have only proven a point about legal authority and nothing to do with the central claim of the Islamic dilemma.
Good.
There, that is a
Good.
full and in
You didn't-
detail
you never said
and
yes or
clear
no.
response. There you go.
No, it wasn't
Now,
at all. Because
let's
when you
talk-
say, if I ask you a question and you say, if that is the case, then X, Y, Z, and you never say, if that is the case, yes, or if that is the case, no, we don't know what your answer is. You just went on for a minute long and nobody heard anything you said.
I'm pretty sure that both you and the audience heard what I said there, Jake.
You didn't answer yes or no. I don't know what your answer is. I'm stupid. Make it simple.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Exactly, because you're afraid.
Let's talk
I'm not
about
going
the
to. I
Jake.
will not move on until I determine that you're an honest actor. At this point, you are a dishonest actor in this conversation because you refuse to answer the question.
Okay. In your hypothetical, that would be correct. Given, okay? That
There
correct
we
is like
go!
a statement. You need to add the fullness of my statement in this hypothetical.
Exactly. Go ahead. Go give your full
okay.
correct hypothetical.
Again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. First of all, this is a caveat that this is not just not to all people. There are Christians and Jews who still have to follow the legal rulings in their scriptures. That's fully authoritative to them, even today, right? It's only talking about those who've been invited to Islam. Second of all, you're assuming his position is true, and the way you characterize it is true. I don't actually know. I don't think it is, but you say it is. Thirdly, this is a point separate to the Islamic dilemma. There you go, Jake. There's a full answer. I even started it with saying you're correct in a hypothetical.
So you said everything good until the last part. When you said when the last part when you said this is a point distinct from the Islamic dilemma.
Yes, I believe it is.
If David presents and says the Quran affirms the inspiration, preservation, and authority of the Torah and Injil, and by authority, he means to include the ongoing legal authority, and that the Jews and Christians are supposed to follow the Torah and Injil, then does my argument actually attack the Islamic dilemma in the way that David presented it?
No, I don't think it does.
How?
Well,
You're
wait.
If David affirms the authority in this manner, and Jake's argument refutes that understanding of authority is wrong, how is that not attacking the Islamic dilemma in the way that David presented it? Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, wait. I can maybe strongman your point here. You say attacking. You don't say refuting.
It's refuting his understanding of the authority. Yes.
But not the Islamic dilemma.
Understanding. It's refuting David's understanding of the Quran's position on the authority of the Torah and Injil. Yes.
But it's not refuting the Islamic dilemma itself.
It is, because that is a key aspect of the Islamic dilemma for David Wood.
Right. Okay, but David Wood said that he could present it with just... Okay, but he said he can present it with just two pillars, right? Inspiration and preservation. Do you agree that the Islamic dilemma still stands with those two pillars?
No, not in the normal way it's been presented. No.
You don't think so?
No. What I said, I even said it during the debate.
You think it's fully dependent on legal authority?
No, dude. It's not even fully dependent on... Wait. I think I just skipped out there. Can you hear me?
That's all right. No, yeah, you're fine. You cut out a little bit, but just say what you said.
I'm giving you even more, Chris, because I'm an honest actor in the discussion. It's not only legal authority. If David conceded the entire authority, which is what I'm looking for, my claim is when David says authority, or when normal Christians who present the Islamic dilemma argument say authority, what they mean by that is Jews are supposed to follow. So you could translate authority for follow. Okay. So you have three aspects, right? Inspiration, which means it was revealed by God originally. Do we agree with that? It's revealed by God. Okay.
Yeah.
Preservation means the original revelation is preserved. It's the same as when it was revealed. Correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then authority, not Chris, forget about you for a second. The authority I'm translating as follow means that Jews are supposed to follow the Torah and Christians are supposed to follow the Injil. That's how I understand authority, and how I'm translating authority is in terms of following. It's not just in terms of legal authority. It's following the scripture of the Torah for the Jews and Injil for the Christians. That's how David presents it. That's my understanding.
So, I mean, you haven't actually targeted authority, as I've said. You've only targeted a particular way of looking at authority, which is the legal aspect, right? So
No, I'm saying they're not supposed
that
to
would
follow.
mean, sorry?
No. So my argument is not only about the legal aspect. My argument is that Jews and Christians are expected to follow the Quran.
Right. Okay.
Once, hold on. We're adding your caveat because you like caveats. I like caveats too. And once they actually hear the message of Islam and are presented with the message of Islam, Jews and Christians are supposed to follow the Quran. Would you agree with me on that?
Sorry, say that again. First,
Once Jews and Christians are presented with the Quran expects Jews and Christians to follow the Quran.
yeah, it expects them to. Yeah, it expects them to be
We know
convinced
they're
by their
going
own
to
scriptures.
disregard it. Most of them will disregard it. We know that. Okay, I'm saying to you, if a Christian understands authority to be that the Jews and Christians are supposed to follow the Torah and Injil, and they're not supposed to follow the Quran, then if I present an argument to show that they are supposed to follow their Quran according to the Quran, then that would disprove their point on authority, because they have one position on authority. My argument is debunking their position on authority. How are you not accepting that?
You're equivocating again. Authority in what sense? Because I've already demonstrated, yeah, the sense you mean really is legal authority.
No.
But when you go outside of that, no, actually, they're still authoritative, because there are still things in there that are revealed by Allah that are true. There is wahi in there.
Chris, I'm talking about following for salvation, that the Jews are supposed to follow the Torah for salvation. The Christians are supposed to follow the Injil for salvation. It's an overwhelming umbrella of following. It's not just the legal authority. That
right.
David's position is Jews don't have to follow the Quran. Christians don't have to follow the Quran. They have to follow their own scriptures. They are not supposed to follow the Quran. I'm saying no, David.
No.
I'm saying no. What? That's not what David believes.
No. So the way you presented that is not the full picture. The Quran does invite Christians and Jews to become Muslim, right? David would say that. I would say that. What you're not giving the full account here.
What does that mean to become Muslim?
To join the community of believers, to accept Muhammad as a prophet.
Would that mean following the Quran?
Yes, it would do once you become a Muslim.
Okay. And if you don't follow the Quran, then what's the penalty?
Presumably death. Or hellfire.
Okay, hellfire in terms of afterlife. Okay, good. I agree with that. And you think David agrees with you?
Yeah, I mean, the Quran invites Christians and Jews to become Muslim. There's no question of that. The difference, though,
David disagrees with you.
Hang on, wait. No, I don't think he does. What I'm saying is that there are obviously, because we're in a period in the Arabian millennium, in the Hijaz.
Why don't we call David? You got his number. Bring him up right now. Bring him on the stream.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't think he's going to join, like, a
Why not?
random stream.
Why not?
What? I'm assuming he's doing something? I don't know. But anyway, look. So
I'm saying to you, go ahead.
You really want to debate David again?
No,
you got to debate Chris.
It's not the point, Chris. When you, it's like this. If somebody says to me, Chris, I'm sure you've seen it. I typically run an argument called the logical problem of the Trinity, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to go into that. I'm not trying to corner you on that. That's not the point. Now, if you are responding to the argument and you say, well, Jake is one of the key proponents of this argument, maybe Dale Tuggy, I don't know, maybe a couple other so-called popular people who present the argument. And then you respond to the argument in the normal way in which it's presented. And then some other random person on Twitter says, No, that's not the LPT. This is really the LPT. And they try to present it in a different way that avoids the criticism being made. Don't you think that that would be disingenuous?
No, that's the normal thing to do with arguments. When I make an argument, I can do it however I want, and you can do it too. And then whoever we present it to has the freedom to address that argument. I don't have to be somehow accountable to only answer Muslim arguments if they're
not saying
presented
that.
in the normative form. That is what you're
No.
saying. You're
No,
saying
I'm not saying.
otherwise it's just
I'm not saying
it's
I don't have to
not,
answer
sincere.
Chris. I'm not saying I don't have to answer Chris.
Then why don't
What
you
I'm
just do
saying
it?
to Chris, no, what I'm saying to Chris
No.
is, hey, Chris, don't tell me that I haven't attempted to refute the Islamic dilemma when I am refuting a key aspect of it in the normal way in which it's presented.
But you haven't,
Authority
though.
equals. That's
Like,
that's
again,
where we're disagreeing. That's where we're
no,
disagreeing.
Jake, you make a caveat for legal authority and the fact that, in your view, it's not binding today, right?
I didn't say only legal authority. I said in terms of following to make it to paradise, which you just agreed with. If Christians or Jews will hear about the Quran and its message, reject it, and refuse to follow it, they are going to hell according to the Quran. You agree with that. You agree
Right,
with
but
that. And I'm saying to you that when David Wood presents the Islamic dilemma, authority directly contradicts that. He says, no, Jews are supposed to follow the Torah, not the Quran. Christians are supposed to follow the Injil, not the Quran, according to the Quran itself. So when I attack that, you're saying I'm not targeting the Islamic dilemma. I'm targeting the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma, according to David Wood.
I've already shown you that I don't think anyone made this caveat, either you or David or Avery, maybe Avery has, or maybe I just haven't seen it, about the difference between those who are invited to Islam and those who haven't been. But my point there is to show you that the point is that there are still Christians that are still legally accountable to their Torah and gospel, and you've accepted that. So,
Chris, the people who have been presented with Islam, you agree with me that they're required to follow the Quran and Islamic law.
Now you've added that caveat, yes.
I'm saying that David disagrees with that. He says even after they are presented with the Quran, they are not supposed to follow. Hold on. They are not supposed to follow the Quran. They are supposed to follow the Jews are supposed to follow the Torah, and the Injil, the Christians are supposed to follow that. They're not supposed to follow the Quran.
Show me a clip where David says that. He says after they've been invited to Islam.
I can do you better. I can show it while you're on stream with him. Okay,
show me where he says after they've been invited to Islam, then they have to do legal authority to follow the Islamic law.
Okay, well, you're gonna have to give me a second to pull it up. It's not like I have it right here ready. It was on Giant Doc's channel. Do you remember when? The Speaking Muslim came up and had a discussion with you guys?
I don't remember the name.
When
I'll probably remember him if I know.
He was making a lot of the similar points that I was making, and then you guys said, "Oh yeah, Jake definitely sent that guy." It was a few
that
ago.
guy. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah.
Okay, so what stream was that on? It was. I can literally once I get to that stream, I can show you.
I won't know the exact one. Like it was a few weeks ago. Yeah.
It was with Jai and Doc. Hold on. Where is it? Okay, I think it was this one. Live call-in show on the Islamic Dilemma. Let's see. Wait. Yeah, I think this is okay, I think this is it. I'm gonna have to find it, but 1 second, I'll find it.
Jake, I really think we're gonna end this live stream and you're not gonna be talking about the actual issues.
No, we're gonna show you, Chris, that you're gonna learn what the actual issue is. That's the point. And you're gonna say, "Oh, Jake, you weren't lying." Oh, I see that.
No, I think we're gonna end this, and I'm gonna be like, "Hey, I had these points about like prophecies that are meant to be found in the Gospels being authoritative, but for some reason, Jake never got around to talking about that."
Were you saying something?
Yeah, I don't think we're actually going to talk about the prophecies in the Torah and Gospel and the stories of the previous prophets being similar to what's in the Quran. I don't think we're going to get to those points today. Because you see, from my perspective, it just looks like you're dodging it.
Yeah, I know, because you're either, Chris. I'm going to take it for granted that you're not disingenuous. I'm going to take that for granted. You just
Usually
don't
it's
know.
assumed.
You just don't know that the normal manner in which the Islamic dilemma has always been presented and defended, Jake's argument actually does target it. If you admitted that, then we could move on. But that's the hang up that you and all of your Christian buddies don't seem to understand.
Yeah, Jake, I've been debating at Speaker's Corner for a few years now, and I know what a cop-out looks like, and I think that's a cop-out.
Okay,
I think so.
That's what you think, but you're dealing with the wrong person, buddy. I don't do cop-outs.
Well, then why don't you just address these other pillars? Or address authority in any of the other applicable senses? You only want to look at it through one very narrow lens.
Because here's the thing. You're criticizing me. Your criticism is, Jake, you're not targeting the Islamic dilemma. My response is, yes, I am targeting the Islamic dilemma. So if we can't agree on that, then we're not going to get anywhere. That's the whole point. How do you not understand this? It's beyond me.
Well, I mean, you think that inspiration and preservation isn't enough? Why don't we talk about that?
I think that somebody could run the argument on inspiration and preservation. Yes, I did think so.
Okay, so why don't we address that then? Because if they can run the argument, that means that is the Islamic dilemma, right?
No, dude, that's what you're not getting. That's not what you're not getting. Chris, how is this so hard to understand? My argument is targeting a key aspect in the normal manner in which the Islamic dilemma is.
So, wait, you just said, though, that you can run it without needing to use authority at all. So why not just accept that and then deal with those points? Because if they can run it and it succeeds, then congrats, the Islamic dilemma is true.
Because you're making the claim that I'm not targeting the Islamic dilemma and that nobody actually has the position that I'm trying to target. That's why. Okay, we got it right here. I found it.
If you look at the transcript, you can then
I got it. Don't worry. I found Speaking Muslim. I found this guy. So okay, there we go.
By the way, do you hold to the Torah and Gospel that the Quran is referring to is being the same as our Torah and Gospel today?
Okay, I'm about to play it now. I found the exact timestamp. What was the question?
So do you hold that the Torah and Injil that is mentioned in the Quran is the same as the Torah and Gospel we have today? Or do you think it's something different? Do you hold to the John Fontaine point of view or the Demas Mons Libiano point of view?
I can't comment on their specific views. I can tell you what my view is. My view is sometimes.
Wait, isn't that what I was saying?
No, because the difference is you're claiming that you know what their position is. I'm going to tell you my position.
I said I'm pretty sure it's not what you think it is. That's exactly what my position is.
Right, exactly. That's the point. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip, but I'm going to answer your question first. My position is that the terms Torah and Injil are have different meanings depending upon the context. Sometimes it's referring to the original revelation that Moses and Jesus received. Other times it's referring to a particular text that is in possession of the Christians and Jews, and that aspects of them reflect the original message. So I don't hold a one-fits-all view. I think that the terms are used differently depending on whether it's in the Quran or the Hadith, and depending upon the context. That's my position. But let's just play this first, and then we can go into that. I'm happy to do it. But David,
Okay, all right.
full answer here.
Raise it to David or Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, you know what's funny? I never really understood Islamic Dilemma until I started watching David's videos, to be fair. So I've heard it like countless times, but everybody was saying it different. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go to the source. So I actually subscribed to his channel, and I started watching his videos. So I was kind of trying to understand what is the actual like Islamic Dilemma. So I had a question for David. Maybe he can help me out here. So David, as part of the Islamic Dilemma, when you say the Quran affirms the ongoing authority of the Quran, doesn't that, pardon, of the ongoing authority of the Torah and the Injil, pardon me, doesn't that contradict the Quran intentionally abrogating certain laws from the Torah and the Injil? And I only say that because if it intentionally abrogates those laws in previous scripture, wouldn't that mean that those laws are no longer authoritative?
No, I can see why you would think that, but the issue is, and this would be kind of expanding things. What you would be saying is, if something is abrogated, if Muhammad is abrogating something, that would be for Muslims, right? You have different prophets sent to different areas of the world, and things can be abrogated. I mean, things were abrogated during the lifetime of Muhammad. He'd receive a revelation saying it's okay to drink as long as you don't show up to the mosque drunk, sober up first before you pray. But then later he would receive a revelation saying, no, you're not allowed to have alcohol at all. So things can be abrogated just within the lifetime of one prophet. But we see, like, according to the Quran, that Jesus abrogated certain things that were taught before him. And so as far as I can tell, this is the message of the Quran. This is and we could go through verses if you want, but this is the overall message of the Quran. In other words,
okay, wait. He's now listen. So far, so good. He's going to tell you what the overall message of the Quran is on this topic. Go ahead.
If I were just to go to the Quran and I read the Quran from beginning to end, and I understood kind of the that it's not chronological, but I could kind of figure out the chronological order. What would I think the Quran is saying about the Quran and the previous scriptures and what role they play? Here's what you get. Here's the overall takeaway message. Allah has sent prophets into the entire world, and he's given revelations for people around the world in their own language. He gives the revelations in their own language, because if you don't have a revelation in your own language, you'd have to listen to someone else telling you about their revelation in their language, and you don't know if they're telling you the truth or not. They could be distorting and misrepresenting things. That's an ongoing accusation against Jews and Christians in the Quran, is that when we tell people what's in our books, we misrepresent and distort things. So every nation had already received their revelation in their language, except the Arabs. Every other nation had their prophet. Every other nation had their revelation. The last people to receive their revelation were the Arabs. And so the Arabs needed an Arabic speaker to reveal the book for Arabs. Once that happened, then everyone had their book. And the message of the Quran is, you go with the revelation that was revealed to your group in your language. That's why by the time we get to like Surah 5, verse 53, Jews come to Muhammad to settle a dispute. And Allah's response is, why are they coming to you when they have the Torah? What sense does it make for them to come to you? They've got the book that was revealed to their group. Why are they coming to you? And then just a few verses later, let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah hath revealed therein. And when the Quran is talking about what the Jews do, notice if the Quran is abrogating things from, let's say, the Torah, then when Allah talks about the Jews in Surah 2, and the Jews were only following parts of the Torah, not following other parts, the response should have been, hey, it's good that you're only following parts of the Torah. Let me explain to you which parts you are supposed to follow and which parts are supposed to, which parts have been abrogated. That's not what he says to the Jews. He says you have to follow all of it. And if you, in the Surah 2, verse 85, says you have to follow all of it. And if you don't believe in any part of it, I will send you to hell. So you kind of put all that together, and the perspective is that, yes, things can be abrogated for Muslims from previous scriptures and so on. But that doesn't mean if you're a Jew and you're remaining a Jew, then you have to follow your book, the revelation that was given to your group. Christians have to follow the revelation of their group. Everyone has to follow the revelation that was given to them in their language. That's how I read the Quran. Just let me check. Chris, is that how you read it? Because you've gone through the entire thing. Is that about how you read it?
Yeah, exactly that. There's other verses as well that say the same thing. So David gave you sort of Al-Baqarah Surah 285, where it talks about, why do you take some parts of the Torah, but you reject other parts? And the Quran condemns them for doing that. But if you look at Surah 691, it's a very similar thing. It's like, you take the book that was given to Moses, and you write it into pieces, like you separate it. So again, the Quran is condemning the Jews for taking their scripture and putting it into parts rather than taking it as a whole. So at the time of Muhammad, the Jews had to follow all of the Torah. That's our point, because it's authoritative. So when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims, about what Muslims do going forward after that, as opposed to the Jews or the Christians.
Yeah, and so as far as the authoritative part, it's the scriptures are authoritative for the group that they were revealed to. There can be differences, and he says in 548 that he gave different laws for different groups to keep them different groups so that they would compete with each other in good works. There's an element in which the Quran is authoritative even for Muhammad and Muslims, in that our scriptures are supposed to line up with it. And if it doesn't, if the Quran doesn't line up with our scriptures, then there's supposed to be a problem, because if these scriptures don't line up, then Muhammad would just be wrong that all these were revealed by God and they've all been preserved and so on. But as far as what you're actually supposed to follow, the commands that you're actually supposed to follow, the Torah and the gospel would be authoritative according to the Quran for Jews and Christians in that sense, as far as what you're actually supposed to follow.
Okay. All right. Yes, I appreciate that.
There you go. According to the Quran, the Torah is supposed to be followed by the Jews.
Yeah.
According to the Quran, hold on,
Yep.
Chris. This looks really bad for you now, buddy, because I didn't actually think.
We were watching
Yeah,
the
I
same
didn't
clip,
actually.
though.
I didn't think it was this bad, but it's really bad for you.
Why?
Because David literally says going forward, not just at the time the Quran was initially revealed in an earlier stage. He says going forward, the
Jake.
Torah is an authority that they are supposed to follow, and the Injil is an authority that they're supposed to
Jake,
follow.
you already
listen to what
conceded
you
that
said.
that is
Let's listen to
actually
what
the
you
case.
said. Let's listen to what you actually said, Chris. You buried
Yes,
yourself.
I
buddy.
agree. I agree with everything I just said there. That's completely correct.
No, Oh,
Again,
really?
The entire thing, is that about how you read it?
Yeah, exactly that. There's other
Yeah.
verses as well that say the same thing. So
Okay.
David gave you sort of Al-Baqarah Surah 285, where it talks about, why do you take some parts of the Torah, but you reject other parts? And the Quran condemns them for doing that. But if you look at Surah 691, it's a very similar thing. It's like, you take the book that was given to Moses, and you write it into pieces, like you separate it. So again, the Quran is condemning the Jews for taking their scripture and putting it into parts rather than taking it as a whole. So at the time of Muhammad, the Jews had to follow all of the Torah. That's our point.
Wait,
because
what did
it's
I say?
authoritative.
What did I say?
So when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims, about what Muslims do going forward after that, as opposed to the Jews or the Christians.
Oh,
Wait,
wow.
what did I say? What did I say?
Look
Did I
at
say at
that.
the time?
Let's listen to that 5 seconds again.
Because it's authoritative. Follow or taking it as a whole. So at the time of Muhammad, the Jews had to follow all of the Torah.
There we
At
go.
the time of Muhammad, hold on. At the
Yes.
time of Muhammad, the Jews had to follow all of the Torah. Now watch what you said next.
That's our point. Because it's authoritative. So when it comes to abrogation,
Notice that you guys are using the word
You've
authoritative.
just proven my point.
Hold on a second. You're buried, Chris.
No, I think
you guys
just-
are
you
using
showed
the
this
word
is bad.
authority. Hold on. The next sentence is
haven't,
going to bust you down.
Are you sure? It doesn't look like it.
You're using the word authority in the exact same way that I am.
How do you know that?
Hold on. It's shorthand for follow. Authority means
Yes.
follow.
But you can follow in beliefs,
exactly.
right?
Now listen to this next sentence, Chris.
This is more, that's our point, because it's authoritative. So when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims, about what Muslims do going forward after that, as opposed to the Jews or the Christians.
Wow. So abrogation is about what is for the Muslims going forward, as opposed to the Jews and the Christians. So the laws being abrogated do not apply to the Jews and Christians going forward. That's what you just said.
No, I said usually.
No,
you don't
no.
Hear that? Why are you laughing? I literally said, I even made a caveat. I said in the way it's used, usually.
Come on, Chris.
Yeah,
I know, man. This is hard on you, buddy.
This was because it's authoritative. All of the Torah. That's our point. Because it's authoritative. So when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims.
This is
about what
more
Muslims do going forward
for
after
Muslims,
that, as opposed to the Jews or the Christians.
This is only
about what Muslims do going forward after that, as opposed to abrogation. This is more for Muslims because it's authoritative.
For Muslims,
so
Jake.
when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims. About
More
what
for
Muslims do
Muslims,
going forward
Jake.
after that,
Keep
as opposed
interrupting
to
yourself. Let yourself finish. Watch. We're gonna focus on your more at that wheel. Don't worry.
That's our point.
We're
Because
still
it's
not talking about the
authoritative.
Islamic Dilemma,
So
Jake.
when it comes to abrogation, this is more for Muslims. About what
More for
Muslims do going
Muslims.
forward after that, as opposed to the Jews or the Christians.
It's more so for Muslims.
More
but
so, yes.
Hold on. So it's not for all Muslims. It's only.
That's not what I mean. Jake, listen.
Only
You have
for
the
some of
perfect.
the Muslims, not all of them?
You have the perfect opportunity to figure out what I meant by the statement. Do you know why?
Yeah, you meant
because
exactly
you're
what I just said.
whoa. Because
exactly what I just said.
Jake, you're talking to the person who said those words.
Exactly.
So you can ask me, what do you mean by that?
You
just
said going forward. You just said going forward. It is for the Muslims, but
more
not
so
for the Jews and Christians.
It is more so, Jake. More so means that abrogation is typically understood
about what
more
Muslims do
for
going forward after
Muslims
that, as
than for
opposed
the other
to
groups.
the
I didn't
Jews
say
or the
exclusively.
It's about what Muslims go. You said
no
it's
more
about
so.
You said it's about what Muslims do.
Can you say the words more so?
Well, I will. It's about what the Jews and the Muslims do. More so the Muslims do going forward, as opposed to the Jews and the Christians. That's
Also,
what you said.
isn't it like a basic point of courtesy
Yeah,
to ask the person who's talking
when
about
it
it?
comes to abrogation,
Jake.
this is more for Muslims because it's
Jake.
authoritative.
Look, right here.
So
Jake,
when it comes to abrogation, this
Jake.
is more for Muslims.
Jake,
about
more
what
for
Muslims do
Jake.
going forward after that, as opposed to the Jews
Can I
or the
speak, Jake?
Christians.
As opposed to the
Jake, can I
Jews or the
speak?
Christians.
Yes, because
opposed to the Christians.
usually abrogation is more in the context of Muslim laws. Usually. Jake, it's not difficult.
So it's not. So when he listened to the original question was, does the abrogation aspect attack the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma?
In a legal sense. David never says.
David's response was no, because his idea is that each separate group has their own law, which they're supposed to follow. The Jews follow the Torah. The Christians are supposed to follow the Injil.
Yes, which is still binding today, as you have admitted. Which is still binding today, as you've admitted, because there are Christians and Jews that have not been invited to Islam who are still required. How do you know?
Answering a general question.
How do you know?
Chris,
You've never. Did you ask him? Did you ask him this?
Dude, this is the point where we part ways because you're just being disingenuous.
No.
When you say this is like Daniel Hakikachu, when I played a clip from him, what he said, oh no, I didn't really mean that. And the guy that I was sitting with, we didn't really mean that. Everybody knows what you meant. It's in the context of a general question. You're saying that, in actual fact, what you and David really meant was, Jews and Christians are supposed to follow the Quran at the time of the Prophet Muhammad going forward, unless they never actually heard of the Quran. No, your answer only refers to the people who never heard of the Quran. How ridiculous do you sound, dude?
What do you mean ridiculous? That you even conceded that's correct, and that's why your argument falls
That's not
down.
what the question is about. The question is
I don't know,
about
the question
are
seems to be
the
like,
books authoritative for the Jews and the Christians, or
yes,
are the laws that the Quran abrogates for them, is that an authority over the Jews and Christians? And what you're telling me you're saying is, when I say it's more so for the Muslims as opposed to the Jews and Christians,
yeah, which is
what I
exact
mean
word.
by that is it's for the Muslims and
Mostly.
those who never heard of Islam or Islam was never preached to them. That's what your interpretation of your words are?
Wait, hang on. Interpretation of my own words.
Yeah.
Sorry, do you not think that I can explain to you what I mean?
No, I think you're a liar.
Jake, you see, there you are then.
Yeah.
See,
I think you're lying. I think you're lying
this is
about
what
your
you
own
do.
words. I think you're lying.
Oh, you mean lying? Jake, you
lying.
quoted my words. I said it's more so, meaning the
Okay,
majority, the emphasis is on Muslim laws, but not exclusively.
Muslim as opposed to Christians and Jews. You were clearly referring to that the Jews and Christians do not have to actually follow the Quran. That's what David is saying. David never used.
There was a point in time where they didn't have to follow the legal rulings.
Is
in the
David
Quran.
talking
You've already
about
accepted that.
Is David? Are you and David in this clip?
Am I David? Am I David?
Okay, so wait.
Go ask David.
Okay,
Give him
so
a pull, man.
David in this clip, was he talking only about the time before Jews and Christians are presented with Islam?
Jake, I don't know because I didn't think of it as a thing at the time.
Know. So then when David asked you,
sorry, are you saying do I live in David's head? What do you think is going on
when
here?
David asked you, do you agree? Why'd you say yes? Why didn't you say I don't know what you mean?
Because broadly or generally speaking, I do. And it's decked on the back or
is that how them in their language?
Jake,
that's how I read the Quran. Just let me check. Chris,
Jake,
is that how you read it? Because you've gone through the entire thing. Is that about how you read it?
Yeah, exactly that. There's other verses as well that say the same thing. So David gave you sort of a background.
Wow. So when he asked you, he gave his full explanation and said, Chris, is this basically the same way that you read the Quran? Why didn't you say, well, Dave, I'm not really sure what you're saying. I can't answer that because I don't really know what you're saying.
Jake, as you yourself, I think you believe, there are ways you can generally confirm things. Right? So based off what David said there's nothing in there that I explicitly disagree with.
It's not a full
it's a general confirmation, right?
Come on, Chris.
There you are.
That's a general confirmation, bro. That's not a full confirmation.
Because I don't need to know everything that he's saying. It's not a specific, I'm not specifically going through everything.
That's the Quran's position, man. We're doing a general confirmation.
I don't think it is. In fact, the Quran condemns that, as we both say actually in this clip.
Oh man! Wow! Come on, Chris. You know that was funny. Listen, dude.
That was funny.
Honest, the clip is clear as day. David is presenting the position that Jews and Christians have to follow the Torah and Injil, not the Quran. Your interpretation is, no. David was only referring to the Jews and Christians who never were presented with Islam?
How do you know it wasn't? How do you know that's not his view?
Dude. Honestly.
What are you asking? Yeah, you're reading your own interpretation into David's head.
It's clear what he's talking about. It's clear what he's talking about.
I think it's clear in he's just saying that authority is a valid
only means
point.
the Jews and Christians who never were presented with Islam. That's your position.
I don't know. Because
Okay,
I'm not David Woods, Jake.
You don't know. I'm saying it's clear as day. It's clear as day. Now, hold on a second. This is where we're going to do it. If David comes to you, David watches this, and he says, you know what? Jake is correct. That is my position, that the Jews and Christians, according to the verses regarding authority, are supposed to follow the Torah and Injil. They are not obliged to. They do not and are not supposed to follow the Quran. Then would my argument be targeting his claim regarding authority?
Jake, I think we're just talking past each other at this point. I don't think you're actually going to ever debate the Islamic Dilemma.
You're not answering the question?
No, I don't. I've now come to the realization you will never debate the Islamic Dilemma.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've come to the realization.
I've
come to the realization now that you're just dishonest, because when I ask you a hypothetical
well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm coming to.
You saying exactly what I've accused you of and what the Islamic Dilemma is.
Jake, there's a principle. You have to be charitable when you play back someone's words.
We have to be charitable, but the Quran contradicts itself on every single page?
I don't say it contradicts itself on every single page.
Oh, you don't? That's basically
No,
your
Jay.
position on the Islamic dilemma.
No, my position on the Islamic dilemma is that there are 18 Mosadiq verses that confirm our scriptures, and yet there are also doctrines that oppose the doctrines found in these scriptures.
How many
That's the
verses
dilemma.
are there that say that you're supposed to judge by your scriptures?
Judged by the scriptures.
Yeah. How many are
Well, so you got 543, 46, 47, 66 to 68, same Surah Al-Ma'idah chapter. There's quite a few of them, yeah.
quite a few of them, right? And when it
Right.
tells you to judge by them, is that a partial judgment or a full judgment?
I would say that's a full judgment.
That's a full judgment. But is that
Yeah.
a full judgment for all Jews and Christians going forward?
Not for the legal aspect, as you point out, but it is.
So it's
but
a
it is-
partial judgment, right?
But it is for the inspiration, preservation, and authority
The
of
authority
those
is a
scriptures.
partial, the authority is a partial authority, right? Not a full authority, right?
The authority is that the scriptures are binding,
Are they legally binding on Jews and Christians?
not after a certain period, for
Okay,
a set
so-
group of people.
Oh,
But they
okay.
are still
So it's a
for
partial-
Christians and Jews who have never been
Ah.
invited to Islam.
So
I keep
for the
saying
Jews-
this to you,
So for the Jews and Christians who have been invited to Islam,
the minority.
it's a partial authority, not a full authority, right?
No, when we say full authority, what we mean is that the Quran is not saying that some verses have been corrupted. Rather, it's simply acknowledging the doctrine of abrogation that the Quran itself mentions.
Okay,
Again,
well, doesn't preservation already cover that? So now you're being redundant, Chris.
No, I'm not being redundant at all. I'm making a
You are.
distinction
You're
between
saying
different
you're,
kinds
you're,
of authority.
you're redefining authority to mean
No,
that it's
I
preserved
just-
and not corrupted.
No, I'm just understanding authority in the appropriate sense in which the Quran means.
And
For a
what is
period of
it?
time, that also
Means
included legal
So
authority.
authority
How
means
about-
preserved?
No, authority is the fact that you have a binding commandment to go. You are accountable to your scriptures. They are
Okay,
authoritative to
legally-
you.
Is
for
it,
that.
is it a legal authority for you?
For a period of time in the Quran, yes.
Okay, but not all time
In-
going forward?
Not for those who've been invited to Islam. who
Okay, so
reject
it's a
it.
partial authority for a group of people.
Going forward, but at the time of Muhammad, it was a full authority.
Okay, and then it changed and now it's a partial authority.
Sure, but the reason why this is a problem,
Mm.
and this is why when the people that present the argument do point this out, is that the inspiration, preservation, and authority in full senses are affirmed by Muhammad. That's our
Okay,
point.
so they're affirmed, but Muhammad also affirms the authority part as a partial authority, right?
Later on, yeah.
Oh, later on. So he affirms it as a partial authority. So why can't we affirm the inspiration and preservation as partial inspiration and partial preservation?
Because your doctrine as a Sunni Muslim does not hold the abrogation as including things like the attributes of God or the stories of prophets or the prophecies in our scriptures. Do
Doesn't
they?
matter. Can there be a
Doesn't
partial?
matter.
Can there be a partial affirmation of the stories?
Okay, so was Muhammad only partially prophesied in our scriptures?
Yeah, he wasn't prophesized in
Whoa.
every single. He wasn't prophesized in every single verse in your scripture.
Right, but it's still fully prophesized in the sense that there is actually a prophecy in our scriptures,
It's
right?
only in partial. It's only in aspects of the revelation.
See, now you're equivocating on the word partial.
No,
you're
I'm
trying to-
showing you. I'm showing you what it means. I'm showing you.
No,
what it means.
because you're making
know what
a
part
distinction.
means.
Well, but
Part
you're
means it's not the whole, right?
I know. You're making a distinction between qualitative and quantitative understandings of part.
That's
what
exactly
you're doing
what we
now.
mean. What do you think? What do you think Muslims mean when they say that we affirm parts of your scripture? Do you think they're talking about the quality or the quantity?
It depends who you ask.
We're talking about the quantity. We're saying parts of your scripture, not the whole of it. We affirm parts of it as being inspired, parts of
Even
it
though your
as
Quran
being-
condemns them.
hold on. Parts of it as being preserved and parts of it as being authoritative. That's our position.
But the Quran doesn't say that. The Quran says it confirms.
You just agreed that the Quran says that it's partially authoritative, not fully.
In the sense of moving forwards, yeah, it's not.
Okay, we're saying the same thing about preservation and inspiration.
Because abrogation allows you to have legal authority over certain things for a period of time.
Mhm.
But
So
are you saying? Wait. Are you saying, according to Sunni tradition, abrogation is understood to also include things like the nature of God?
No, What I'm telling you is
wait.
I'm
Well, that's interesting.
I'm showing your
So-
hermeneutic. I'm showing
Now
your
you've just given
hermeneutic, Chris. I know this is hard. I know this is hard. I'm
just given
showing
it
you your
on.
hermeneutic that when it says to judge by the Torah or judge by the Injil, or you do not stand upon anything unless you stand upon the Torah and Injil. When it makes these statements, it doesn't, in the same context of those verses, say, oh no, it's only referring to partial, or it's only referring to a specific time period. It doesn't say that. Hold on a second. It uses broad categories. Yeah, there we go, Christopher. So that means that in the case of the Quran, why is it that you allow those verses to mean partially authoritative and partly for a specific time? Why? It's because you read other verses, which if taken, hold on, you read other verses, which if taken on their straightforward meaning, would contradict a full authority for all Jews and Christians going forward. Therefore, you interpret it in its correct context. We're doing the same thing when it comes to inspiration and preservation. We're reading the Quran as a whole, and just as you read that verse when it's referring to judgment as partially authoritative, we're doing the same thing when it comes to inspiration and preservation based upon other verses in the Quran. Welcome to the Muslim position, Christopher.
Tell me a single verse in the Quran that says the Torah or the Injil is corrupt.
Oh, see, here we go. That's the point.
There we go. That's what it boils down to. Okay,
exactly.
Give me the answer.
I will. Just as I want you to recognize now you're seeing how my argument is directly connected. Because if you're willing to read the same verses that you read regarding inspiration and preservation as referring to partial authority, then there's an opening for the argument to read them in terms of partial inspiration and partial preservation. That's the point, Chris. Do you see the connection? Are you connecting the dots?
I mean, you can connect it that way if you want, but that's just wrong. Like, that's obviously wrong.
How?
Like abrogation as a doctrine is in your Quran, and it establishes this principle regarding legal rulings.
There we go.
There is nothing in your Quran that says, by the way, if we may have told you that heaven is like this in the previous scriptures, but now heaven is actually like this now because it's been abrogated.
Chris, but this is the point, sir. The point is that the verse itself, just using the verse itself, you're now agreeing is insufficient to make the point regarding the Islamic dilemma, because there could be other verses that clarify it. For example, when it comes to authority, you agree with Jake. Unlike David Wood and Avery, you agree that there are other verses in the Quran which clearly establish that certain laws are abrogated for Jews and Christians to follow when they start following the Quran. I agree with you, right? Now, the only difference between the two of us is, are there other verses that also clarify the position regarding the inspiration and preservation regarding the Torah and the Injil? You say no, I say yes. That's the difference between us, and we can now go into what those verses are. But to say that my argument regarding authority is totally irrelevant, has nothing to do with the Islamic dilemma, there's no connection between it, I'm just showing you what the connection is. Those verses now, which are similar ones that you use for inspiration and authority preservation, you also use for authority. You agree based upon other verses in the Quran can be read as a partial authority. So you're at least agreeing with, in principle, if I were to present you with a verse that clearly said that the Torah is no longer preserved, or is no longer the one that we have is fully inspired, do you agree that in principle would defeat the Islamic dilemma?
If you could give me actual verses that demonstrated that inspiration or preservation is not actually being affirmed, then yeah, it would do. But you can't do that because there are no verses that say that.
Yeah, but you're agreeing with, in principle, if I were able to do something in a similar manner that I've done with authority regarding inspiration and preservation, then you would accept that it's partial and not full.
Let me explain what we mean by full, because I think you've missed the point.
Oh, okay.
Listen. At the time of the Quran, there was a point when he fully affirmed the validity and the authority of the Jewish and Christian, in the sense of the gospel, law. That's a full authority. Once you grant that, which you do, then That's it. It's game over because now we derive the Islamic dilemma from that.
Doesn't work, Chris.
The fact that you then go, but there's a real sense in which there's a partness to this. I say yes, but that's not the sense that we're using it in. We're using it in the sense that there was a period in time when it was fully authoritative, legally as well.
When was that?
When 548, you can look at other verses that clearly tell you there is a legal law, and you Christians and you Jews better follow your scriptures, the legal laws that you find in there.
Right. And why did it change?
It's irrelevant why it changed.
It is. It is relevant.
Why?
It's relevant because when you talk about the inspiration and preservation, there is a reason why it changed.
Right, but why does that matter?
Because it's the same thing. Why did it change in terms of authority?
Yeah, but why?
I'm asking
I keep asking you, why does it matter?
Friends disagree with you.
Why does it matter, Jake?
Because I'm telling you, your Christian
You can tell
friends,
me all you want, but
I'm telling you why it matters. Your Christian friends disagree with you. So when you say it's the case,
okay, great.
And you don't present any evidence for your case, they're going to say,
my evidence is quoting you, Jake. My evidence is 929.
Oh, like, 929. So you agree with me about the Islamic dilemma?
No, that's not what I said there, Jake. I said 929 is a pretty clear verse that at a certain period in time, any Christian or Jew who's been invited to Islam and who rejects Muhammad's laws, they don't agree on what has been made unlawful, for example, that is a different perspective that the Quran had elsewhere. This is acknowledged through the
548, according to 548,
and elsewhere. Yes, this is acknowledged through abrogation.
Let's deal with 548. Let's deal with 548.
Okay. What do you want to do with 548? What are we?
You're making a claim about it. Let's see what it says. 548, and then we have revealed to you, O Muhammad, the book, i.e. the Quran, in truth, confirming that which preceded it of the scripture, and as a criterion over it. So judge between them by what Allah has revealed, and do not follow their inclinations away from what has come to you of the truth. To each of you we prescribed a law and a method. Had Allah willed, he would have made you one nation, united in religion, but he intended to test you in what he has given you. So race to all that is good. To Allah is your return altogether, and he will then inform you concerning that over which you used to differ. So you're claiming that this verse supports your claim that in the early period, the Jews and Christians were not supposed to follow the Quran, correct?
They were supposed to accept the Quran because they were always being invited to become Muslim. But the Quran author is perfectly happy for Jews and Christians to follow their own legal laws found in their own scriptures. Yes.
But how could they do that if they believe in the entire Quran, which actually gives new laws?
Wait, what? Why do they believe in the entire Quran?
No. What do you mean? They're not supposed to believe in the entire Quran?
But they don't, though. That's the point.
Are Jews and Christians at the time of this verse, 548, are they invited to follow the entire Quran?
They're invited to become Muslim, yeah.
So they're being told that they should follow the entire Quran.
Yeah.
Okay.
By becoming Muslim.
If they're being told that they should follow the entire Quran, then they couldn't be simultaneously told to follow all of the laws in the Torah when the Quran explicitly abrogates those laws.
Yeah, they can, very simply.
How could they follow all of the Torah, in which the Torah has certain dietary restrictions that the Quran then abrogates? How could they follow all of the laws in the Torah and all of the laws in the Quran at the same time?
Because I told you, the Quran is inviting both groups to become Muslim. But there's a lot of these groups that aren't becoming Muslim, which means they are still accountable to what is being found in their scriptures.
Chris, we're talking about the people who are invited to Islam. Those people, was there ever a time where the people were invited to Islam did not actually have to follow the Quran?
I'm saying that the Quran, in its milieu, was inviting Christians and Jews to become Muslim, but it allowed in the early period for them not to be forced into doing this. The whole, fight them or they pay the jizya, that had not been revealed yet. Okay. So the Quran was saying, look, ultimately, all these laws, they came from Allah, and you have a responsibility to follow them. That is then abrogated by 929. It's very simple.
Okay, good. So 548 at the time of this.
Are you getting this?
I'm showing how you're inconsistent. 548 at this time, the Jews and Christians were not being invited to follow all of the Quran. They didn't have to follow all of the Quran.
At what time, sorry?
At the time of this verse, 548, were Jews and Christians required to follow all of the Quran?
They're being invited to believe in the Quran. So the Quran is, in a sense, saying you ought to follow this because you ought to become a Muslim.
Right.
But if you're not doing this, if you're not becoming a Muslim, then you are still bound to the law in your previous scriptures.
But if they don't do it, is that acceptable, or are they punished?
They're punished, yeah. So you have to, yeah. The Quran is clear.
So
that
in
you
terms
can't
of
reject
salvation, there was never a time when Jews and Christians were invited to believe in and only follow parts of the Quran, but not their legal rulings.
There was never a time when the Christian Jews had to follow parts of it, but not the legal rulings.
Yeah.
No, they were always encouraged to become Muslim and follow it all.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying, brother. You just have conceded now to the authority. Jews and Christians have always been required to become Muslims and follow the Quran, which shows that the Quran is actually an authority over the previous scriptures.
Jake, there are you can do two things at once here. You can invite someone to join your religion, but you can also accept that either for those who haven't heard yet, don't know, or for those who are undecided, that they are still accountable to their scriptures. It's very simple. I don't know why this confuses you. I really don't.
Everyone can see that you're crumbling, Chris. So you're admitting that the Quran is actually an authority over the previous scriptures in a sense, correct?
The sense is that the author wants you to become a Muslim. That's the sense.
So he wants you to become a Muslim and follow the Quran and follow the Prophet. And in that sense, the Quran and Islam are an authority over the Jews and Christians and their previous scriptures.
In the way that the author is saying this is from Allah, the same God that revealed the Torah and the Gospel, and that you ought to now progress to the final revelation. But he's not saying, by the way, that any Christian or Jew cannot follow the Torah and the Gospel as a legal authority. In fact, they're commanded to. And until they accept the Quran.
When he commands them to, why is he commanding them to follow their scriptures while at the same time he's commanding them to follow the Quran and the Quran?
Because there are people that have not heard. In fact, most of the world at this point have not heard of the Quran.
Okay, if they haven't heard of the Quran, then how could it be speaking to them?
It's speaking to those in his immediate area, Jake.
So it's speaking to those who have heard it. So the verses regarding that you must judge by and that you are talking about the authority of the previous scriptures, you've just conceded. It can't be referring to the people that never heard of Islam.
Right. Wait.
And
wait.
What do you mean by that? You contradicted yourself. You said that those verses about judging by the previous scriptures only refers to those who never heard of the Quran and were never actually invited to Islam. How could they be following what the Quran says, that they should follow their previous scriptures, if they never heard what the Quran said?
I'm not saying just those people who haven't heard. I'm also saying people who are in Muhammad's immediate context.
Oh, man, dude. You are BBQ chicken, bro. You're done. It's done.
I don't think you actually understood. Well, I mean, we haven't got into the argument yet, so
we have. We just showed that you're inconsistent. You're so baked, it's not even funny. It's not even funny.
Hang on. Summarize exactly where I've gone wrong here, please.
You've gone wrong because I showed the clip where you contradicted yourself. You tried to give a ridiculous interpretation of what you said.
Of my own words.
Now I'm showing you 548 and the verses regarding judgment. And you're saying regarding those verses about telling the Jews and Christians to judge by their Torah and Injil, it's referring to those who have never actually been invited to Islam. Well, how can it be telling people who
Jake,
to do something that's mentioned in the Quran? They could only actually know about it if they were invited to Islam and heard those verses in the Quran.
Jake, there are also people who have been invited to the Islam but have not accepted it.
And when it tells them to judge by it, it's saying they can judge by it, but not for salvation.
No, they're saying that you should go the final step and become a Muslim. That's what it's saying.
Okay, so
But until you do that, Jake, wait,
it,
Jake. Until you do that, what should you do? You should race to do good according to the law that you have been given in your scriptures.
So
yeah,
Chris,
it's completely coherent.
So, Chris, when they're told to judge by it, it's only in the worldly sense. It doesn't mean that it's actually good for salvation.
No, it just means you should become a Muslim. That's what the verse is saying. You should judge by all these scriptures, which according to the Quran author would mean you would become a Muslim. But until you do that, follow the Torah and the Gospel.
And if you follow the Torah, and Injil, and you're invited to follow the Quran, and you don't, are you going to hell?
Yeah, I think that's clear from the Quran.
Good. So that means the judgment that is being prescribed to them for them to do is not something that they're saying, oh, your scriptures are actually a genuine authority in that sense. No, it's just saying in the worldly sense, we would rather you follow the Torah and Injil than being lawless, liberal secularists.
Okay, I don't know where that came from. But no, I mean, put it this way. The Torah and the Injil do get you into paradise. Even at this time.
Torah and now you're flip-flopping now. If you're invited to follow the Quran, if you're invited to follow the Quran and you refuse to follow it.
But what if you haven't been, Jake?
Dude, we're talking about the people who heard the message. You're not listening. No, we're focusing on the same point. The people
you just keep
who heard
switching.
the Quran, the people who heard the Quran and heard the verses in 543 to 548 are people who are being invited to follow Islam and the Quran, are they not?
Right, but are the Torah and Injil authoritatively to get you into paradise?
In 543 and 548,
right.
The people
only
a
subset of people now.
The people who hear 543 to 548, and they know, and they are being told to follow the Quran. When they don't follow it and they choose to follow the Torah or the Injil, are they doing it in a sense that they can actually make it to paradise for doing so?
Once again, you have subdivided the groups to try and make a point because you can't actually apply it to all Christians and Jews. Because Christians and Jews, no, you didn't. No, only to those who've been invited is what you're now saying.
Yeah,
but as I point out,
the Quran says Allah does not actually punish a people until He sends them a messenger.
Right, that's lovely. But the Christians and Jews were therefore still legally binding to follow their scriptures to get into paradise, to Jannah, at the time of Muhammad. Thank you very much.
At the time of Muhammad, when those people actually heard those verses?
Did I say those people who heard those verses?
People who hear the verses of 543.
Did I say that? Did I say that? Or did you say that?
I'm asking you.
Okay, no, I'm talking about the people who haven't heard them.
Okay, so Chris.
Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me?
No, Chris, you're missing the point. 546.
No, let me repeat. Don't do
Hold on. 546.
No.
546 says to judge by the Injil, right?
What about the Christians and Jews who haven't heard of that?
Dude, I already answered this so many times.
Okay, so it is fully authoritative. Thank you. You've already just shown.
Argument. I already told you.
Jake.
Anyone who doesn't have the message is judged accordingly based upon what they receive. Now,
like the Torah and the Gospel. Like the Torah and the Gospel.
You very
like the Torah and the Gospel.
I told you that.
Like the Torah and the Gospel. Yes.
God's signs in creation.
You've conceded it. You've conceded it.
No,
the Torah and the Gospel are fully authoritative to a group of Christians and Jews in the 7th century to get into heaven. Thank you.
Christopher, you have conceded that the Quran is actually an authority over the previous scriptures and over the Jews and Christians. You've conceded that. Do you not understand that you have conceded that?
Jake, you're equivocating with authority again and again. I've been clear when I say legal authority, but you keep switching to a broader authority.
It's a partial authority.
Partial in what sense, Jake?
Partial means not in total, Chris.
Yeah, but in implied to what category? Are you talking about
any part of it? Any part of it? Any
Jake,
aspect of it.
The aspects which are authoritative, right? The Quran clearly does. The foundational aspects that are contradictory in our religions, they don't work. Your Quran affirms those fully.
Okay, so does the Quran affirm a partial authority of the previous scriptures or a total ongoing authority?
I just explained it. I said of the opposing doctrines that you can't reconcile, which is why you're avoiding this whole debate.
So it's only partial authority. It's only a partial authority.
It's a full authority of the things that contradict.
How do you know that? How do you know if it's a partial authority?
Because
how
your
do you
Quran
know?
confirms my
Hold on a
scriptures.
second. If it's a partial authority, how do you know which aspects it's affirming and which aspects it's
Because
not?
the Quran tells us that. It tells us.
Where?
I've already said this.
Where does it tell you? Where does it tell you?
Surah Al-Yunus, ayah 111.
What is it?
Tells us very clearly. Surah 7, ayah 157 tells us the prophecy is in our scriptures. It's authoritative to us, Jake.
Oh, okay.
Jake.
So here's the thing.
And yeah, you can't deal with this.
Which aspects is it not affirming?
So the legal rulings after a period of time for a very small set of groups.
And it's only those. It's only those. It's only that part that it's not affirming.
Uh-huh.
How do you know that it's not more than that?
Because the Quran doesn't say it's more than that.
Okay, so how do you know it's not? Is that argument
because the Quran broadly, without making specific references to things, says it confirms our scriptures.
Also,
it doesn't say by confirming it we confirm only this. Well, no, it's a specific. The word general is like terrible. It doesn't probably.
Oh, it's a general confirmation, right, Chris?
Well, I'm happy with either because I think both of them lead to the Islamic dilemma. So I don't have a problem with you advocating general confirmation. I just think it's not from the Quran. I don't think that's what the Quran teaches. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So it's only a general partial confirmation, not a total one. And then when I ask you, how do you know?
Well, that's not my view. Like I said,
how do you know which parts it's affirming? You can only refer to one verse, which is that the prophet is prophesied in previous scriptures. Is there anything else besides that?
Well, I mean, I gave you two verses there.
Is there anything else besides that?
Oh yeah, all over the place. Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 146, Surah 6, ayah 20.
Was it affirming there?
It's affirming that the Christians and Jews know that Muhammad is a prophet, like they know their own sons.
Okay, good. So So the only part that you've mentioned explicitly that the Quran is affirming is that the prophet is prophesied in your scriptures.
No, I mentioned other ones. You weren't listening.
Is there any other aspect?
Yeah, the prophet stories are they are authoritative.
Where does it say that?
Surah 12, 111. The fact that in our stories, in the people previous the people of the previous scriptures in their story is a lesson for people of intellect. The Quran then goes on in that same verse, because it's a Mosadic verse, it says it confirms. Doesn't say that.
No, it doesn't. Let's bring it up. I'm going to show you right now. Show you right now, bro.
Go on, show me.
Right on the screen. There was certainly in their stories a lesson for those of understanding. Let me finish. Never was it.
It can also be translated as intellect.
What?
It can also be translated as intellect.
Bro, you want me to go to a different translation? What translation?
No, it's fine. It's fine. You can go to this one. I'm just telling you. Jake, I'm just telling you in different translations it will say different things.
Do you speak Arabic?
Do you speak French? What's that got to do with this?
Arabic here, right? We're talking about the Arabic Quran.
Right. Okay. So my point is,
we don't need your text here, brother. Never was it.
I'm sorry that got on
a narration invented, but a confirmation of what was before it, and a detailed explanation of all things, and a guidance and a mercy for people who believe. Nowhere. Hold on. Nowhere in this text is it saying that it is affirming the stories, all of the stories in your Bible. Where does it say that?
Well, it doesn't say the word all. I'll grant you that. But it is in the context of the story of Joseph.
Yeah. And it tells you what the real story of Joseph is.
Do you know that modern scholarship has shown that this is actually just a Syriac lesson?
It says here, there was
part of a homily.
It says there was certainly in their stories.
Yeah.
What is it referring to? The stories of the prophets, right?
This is it. Well, I mean, I think it's in broad perspective the prophets, but if you just want to say this is about Joseph, because this is chapter 12, the story of the chapter of Joseph, I'd say this is clearly confirming that story, and you combine it with ayah 3, where Muhammad is told. Wait. Where Muhammad is told that he is being given this revelation that he didn't know before. So he's reaffirming this is from Allah. But we know it's not from Allah. We know it's from Joseph of Saru and pseudo Nasai.
So, Chris, where does it say in this verse that it's affirming the stories in the Bible? It says there was certainly in their stories, meaning the story. Hold on. In the stories of the prophets. It never says it's affirming the stories of the prophets in the Bible. It doesn't say that in this verse.
It says there. Who's there?
There is the prophets. The prophet stories.
No. There was certainly certainly in their stories.
Who's there? Who's the there?
Okay, so you're saying that this is the prophets themselves, right?
Yeah, who is it? Who's it referring to?
Okay, never was it a narration. Okay, let's say it's the prophets. Never was it a narration invented, but a confirmation of what was before it.
Yeah.
So what's
Mhm.
that then?
A confirmation of previous revelation.
Of what?
What do you mean of what? Of previous revelation is general.
Of the story of Joseph?
Of any revelation.
Okay, so it includes the story of Joseph. Okay,
Yeah.
so again, going back to my next point, in Ayah 3, Muhammad is told that, hey, Allah speaks to him directly, you don't know this story. It's being revealed to you as part of Revelation. We know that this story comes from Syriac bishops, in part, from ascetics. Modern scholarship has shown this. Joseph Whitstone has shown this. Charbel Ritz has shown this. Gabriel Reynolds writes about this. So this is a human work. So yeah, your Quran is just, this is part of the dilemma. You can't solve this.
This is not part of the dilemma. This is not part
of
the
it
dilemma.
is.
What source?
Wait. No, hang on. Did you not just say that the Quran is confirming the story as being correct in our scriptures?
Dude,
it confirms it.
It's in the Quran.
Okay, so it does then. It does confirm, as it says here, it is a
the
confirmation.
Whatever the Quran is presenting in the Quran itself, it believes is true. Of course. What kind of a foolish question is that? But
Awesome.
before we move on, Chris, are you admitting that your reading of this verse was wrong, 12:111?
Oh yeah, sure. So
when you tried to say that this verse proves that there's a confirmation of the stories of the prophets in the Bible, that was wrong, correct?
Oh no, that's correct. You affirm my point, so thank you. That's
no, I did not. Fine. No, I did not.
There was just a word there.
Where does this verse say that it's affirming the stories as represented in the Bible? It doesn't say that.
You just agreed to it. You just agreed to
it. It says their stories means the prophets. You're
fine,
busted.
absolutely fine. I agree with you there. But that doesn't really change my point.
You're admitting that this verse does not explicitly state that it's affirming the stories of the prophets.
You just told me it was.
The Bible.
You just are you thinking on your feet right now? You literally told me. You literally told me that you agree with this. You agree with my interpretation of this verse. You said yes, it is about the story of Joseph. You said it's generally about the previous prophets, and you said it's what's found in the people who have these stories.
No, wrong. Never said that.
So you don't think that this is confirming what the Jews and Christians had of the story of Joseph, for example?
It never says that. In fact, it actually.
in the story about Joseph, it's clearly the story of Joseph.
In fact, it
confirms
it explicitly rejects that.
Explicitly, how does it reject it? I'd love to know that.
Because the story of Joseph in the Bible actually prophesizes that Joseph's brothers and parents would bow down before him. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that ever fulfilled in the Bible? Does that happen?
I don't think so.
Okay, so is that a false prophecy?
No, I don't get where you're going there.
How is that not a false prophecy? Was Joseph a prophet?
So the problem is we don't use the same terms as you.
Okay. Did Joseph receive a dream? Did he have a dream where he prophesied that his parents and his brothers would bow down before him?
This is going away from the dilemma again.
No, it's not. It's directly on the point. I'm showing you this.
My point, Jake. My point to you is this:
You're running now, Chris. You're running now.
Jake. This story is of human origin, and scholars know this.
No, it's not of human origin.
Yes, James Whitstone and Charbel Risk have commented on this and shown you.
Scholars you're quoting, Christopher.
You don't care about scholars. You don't.
No,
care
I don't care about your scholars because I don't care about anyone who doesn't believe in God. It's totally irrelevant.
I don't know if they do believe in God. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Hold on.
Why is it relevant?
Hold on a second, Christopher. I'm showing you how the Bible is different than the Quran. Does the Bible say that Joseph prophesied of his parents?
No, Jake, not doing that.
I know you're not because you just admitted.
No, Jake, you literally admitted that this was a confirmation of prophets and you changed your mind.
You admitted that there's a false prophecy in your Bible.
I don't know what that's got to do with anything to do with the Islamic dilemma. But again, you're pivoting
It
and you want to
does,
go
it
on the
does
offensive.
because in the Quran, as opposed to the Bible, the Quran
Why are you
actually,
raising your voice?
the Quran actually tells the story, and it tells you that Joseph and his parents will, that his brothers and his parents will bow down before him. And by the end of the story, that actually happens in the Quranic narrative. Whereas in the biblical narrative, it has the same prediction, the same prophecy, and yet it's never actually fulfilled because Joseph's own mother dies when she's giving birth to his sibling. So that's the difference, Chris. It's
that's
not
a real cool
affirming.
story, bro.
It is not. I'm showing
Uh-huh.
you how the Quran is actually not actually affirming all of the stories as they're presented in the Bible. It's actually editing them.
Ah, so you believe in conscious edits? You think that the Quran consciously edits?
Chris, who do you think came up with that?
Ah, fair play. You know, I thought it was Dean, but if it was you,
You thought
fair
it was
enough.
Dean? You thought it was
That's
Dean?
what Dean says. Dean says he
Okay.
came up with it.
Well, guess
So
what?
I just thought
I
it
can
was Dean.
show you me saying that in a video on my channel when Dean didn't even have 10 videos on his channel. He was still a little pup.
Ah, fair play. Well, I'll give you credit. So,
Okay. Yeah,
does the Quran?
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Does the Quran always consciously edit? Does it? And by that I mean, does the Quran always re-reveal the correct narration?
Chris, we're dealing with the claim that you had that the Quran is affirming the stories of the prophets in the Bible. You made that claim. I'm saying that it's not. I gave you an example of that and told you that you have a false prophecy in your Bible.
Me an example of the difference. So your understanding of the difference, because again, the Quran is supposedly confirming the story, but it differs from the story.
Why does it differ?
Because your view is that it was corrupted, right?
I'm saying that it's an intentional disagreement.
Right, because the original has been corrupted.
Because it's a false prophecy. It's a false prophecy.
Right, and that's a corruption of the original, right?
Of course. You think God lies? You think God lies?
Okay, first of all, why would the Jews choose to corrupt their own scripture in a way to remove this and make it introduce a false prophecy?
We don't have to explain every single corruption. We don't have to explain every single corruption in the previous scripture. We just have to show you that the Quran is not affirming the same stories. It's actually subtly disagreeing with them.
So you admit that you can't think of a rational motive as to why the Jews would corrupt this particular bit, right?
I can.
What's the motive?
They're hypocrites.
So they decided one day to come together across all synagogues. Wait, no. You let me land. So the Jews collectively, across all different sects, decided to, within every synagogue, change their own Torah copy and also change the oral tradition that they all had so that it would change a specific verse to introduce an intentional problem in their own Quran from your perspective.
Never said that. Never said that.
So what are you saying then?
To my words.
You said they're hypocrites.
Chris, you don't even know what my position is.
Tell me your position right now.
That was pretty funny. That was pretty demanding. My position is that in virtue of the oral revelations, many of them being reduced to writing, that they themselves were corrupted.
Sorry, due to demand of what? So you think it was accident?
No, I never said that.
Okay, so it was intentional.
Sometimes it could be intentional, other times it's not. Yeah.
Was this intentional?
Of what? The story of Joseph?
Yeah, the specific example you gave.
I would think so, yeah.
Okay, so what?
I mean, of course, I don't have every single example being mentioned, but what I do know is that the Quran intentionally disagrees with it. That's for sure.
Okay, so if it's intentionally been corrupted, what motive would the Jews have had to have done that?
They're hypocrites. What motive would they have to worshiping the golden calf?
So you think they wanted to corrupt their own scriptures for no apparent reason?
No.
Other than the fact that they're hypocrites.
Dude, why do you think they started worshiping an idol after they were in the presence of Moses receiving revelation? What motive would they have for that? What motive did they have for actually worshiping an idol after they received revelation, Chris? What motive did they have?
So let's grant this. How is it possible that they corrupted their own scriptures across the Jewish diaspora?
Why is it impossible?
because you would have to corrupt them across all of them to uniformly change the text, and you would have to change the oral tradition.
On this story, where's this story
Yeah.
mentioned?
So in Genesis 37, you would have to go into that chapter, leading all the way to 50, chapter 50, and you would have to change it in every copy of the Torah across the entire Jewish diaspora.
Mm-hmm.
Could you give me an account of how that could be possible?
Because did you hear my previous answer?
They're hypocrites.
No. No, that's about why they would have done it. Which
So how do they do it?
I'm telling you, in virtue of the oral revelation being reduced to writing, that it can be done straight from the get-go.
So it was an accident then?
When did I say anything about an accident?
So you're saying that they knew it was in oral tradition, but then when they wrote it down, they intentionally changed it then?
Chris,
because they wanted to be hypocrites.
Let's go back a step further. I believe that that revelation is initially oral, except for a small number of exceptions for that. Okay, so if it's orally revealed from God to an angel, and then from an angel to a prophet, it's not a book dropping out of heaven. You don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't believe it's a book. No, like dropping out of heaven.
Okay. So do you believe the same thing that prophets like Moses received? You think that entire 5 books of Moses dropped down from heaven?
No. So,
so how do you think it's compiled? It matters because your position is actually the same as mine. Don't you believe that it was reduced to writing by later individuals?
Yeah, I agree with you there. What I'm trying to get at
is I'm saying to you, in virtue of it being reduced to writing in the very beginning, it was already corrupted.
I'm saying, one, why would they do that? To which you haven't been able to give a motive.
I did.
And two,
Chris, why did they worship the golden calf in the presence of Moses and Aaron?
Yeah, but that's a whole different thing to intentionally corrupting your own scriptures.
What's the motive? They're hypocrites. They had hardened hearts. They killed the prophets. They lied against God. They worshipped idols in the presence of other prophets. They were
the reason for that is because they succumbed to false beliefs that had actual reasons for doing that, right?
No, they didn't. What?
Yeah, I mean, like they worshipped the golden calf because they thought there was some benefit in doing that.
What was the benefit? What was the benefit? What was the benefit?
They believed it actually was a real idol.
In what sense? In what sense? Hold on a second. Do they believe that the golden calf actually could bring harm or benefit to them?
Yeah, presumably so, and that's why they worshipped it.
What? Chris, what normal person of a sound mind believes that a golden calf that they created with their own hands could actually bring harm or benefit to them?
Isn't that literally the story in your Quran of Abraham and the idols?
No.
That's literally the story.
No, it's not. In fact,
Abraham literally says, what benefit does this bring to you?
In fact, exactly. In fact, you just want to go over. Listen,
brother, you need to repent in your own religion because you just went against the Quran.
Let me explain.
You just mocked the Quran.
Christopher, I'm going to explain to you. I actually just give an entire presentation on this in my debate with Daniel Haqiqatjou.
You need to redo it.
Let me finish. All of the Sunni scholars agree, and on their tafsir in these verses, that the reason why it's being said to them is because the people who are worshiping those idols don't actually genuinely believe that the idols that they've crafted out of their own hands actually do have genuine harm and benefit for them. They don't believe that.
Have there ever been any people in that society that believe that?
No. They're not. They don't exist.
Okay, I don't even know what to say to that then.
Exactly.
Obviously, there are pagans that believe that idols.
Brother, it's hard on the mushrikeen. It's really hard on you guys. You don't know our Quran. You think you do. You want to interpret it, but you don't know what our scriptures say. You don't know what our scholars actually interpreted these verses. You want me to go through the presentation on this? Seriously?
Look,
exactly.
Jake,
nobody believes that these idols which they crafted with their own hands are independent deities that are actually giving them harm and benefit. They don't believe that.
Why on earth are they making them then?
Exactly, Chris. That's the
Okay.
whole point.
Okay.
I'm asking
Okay.
you. You think that a person who's crafting the golden calf, he actually believes, and the people around them, after receiving revelation from
Wait,
Moses, they believe that that golden calf is giving them benefit and harm?
you think that they made the golden calf and worshipped it for fun? What on earth are you
I never said
saying?
that. I never said
For
that.
what then? What? Because they're
They're
hypocrites. And they're like, hey guys,
hypocrites,
do you
dude.
remember that we're hypocrites?
Dude,
Oh yeah,
have
I
you
forgot. I
seen-
forgot we were hypocrites.
Hey,
we should
Chris.
probably go worship that
Hey,
golden calf.
Chris,
Why
have
not?
you? Let me help you out. Do you know of a group called Satanists?
Well, I'm not personally acquainted, but I've heard of them. Yeah.
You kind of look like it, but you know the Satanists.
Okay. All right.
Satanists. I mean, we heard about your what was it? Your I don't want to get into that. Anyway, the heavy metal stuff you listen to, so it might be some satanic stuff there. So
It's a jazz. Me and the jazz have the same music like preference.
Well,
I'm
and
still
that's what I'm
confused.
telling you, guys. You're
Is it jazz on your team or is he on
your
the other?
taste in music sucks, dude. I'm gonna be honest.
No, we got good music.
Yeah,
Is it
taste-
jazz on your side or is he?
On my side with what?
It is. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you see eye to eye? I don't know. I'm genuinely asking.
I disagree with him about a lot of things.
Okay.
I think he has very problematic views when it comes to Islamic theology.
Well, I'd agree. He likes Disturbed and he likes pro-Jewish.
I agree with you, man. What's wrong? What is he thinking? What is he thinking?
And he posts it publicly.
Okay, so yeah, I do. I don't like metal guys. Anyway,
man.
yeah, let me get back to the point, Chris. Okay, about the story of these people. They don't actually believe that the golden calf is an independent deity who is bringing them harm and benefit.
How do
They
you
don't.
know?
Oh my God, bro.
Because your view, literally, as far as I could tell, it's just that they did it for fun.
No, dude. Why did they kill prophets? Why did they kill prophets?
Well, that's a really good question. But
Why
when you
did they
worship
kill
a golden
Jesus,
calf,
according
it's
to you?
usually because you
Why did
think
they
there's a
kill-
reason for it.
Why did they kill
Wait.
Jesus?
Was there a reason that they killed the prophets?
They were hypocrites, dude. The Jews.
Wait,
They
so
were
they just woke up
hypocrites.
one day and they were like, "That guy's a prophet. We should kill him for fun, arbitrary." Like,
They're
we'll
hypocrites.
flip
Their
a coin.
hearts-
If it
their
lands on
hearts were
heads,
hardened
we'll
by
kill
God
the
because they weren't
prophets.
true
If
followers
it's
of
tails,
God.
we won't.
Chris,
I think you need to
Chris,
revise that because that's not very good.
Chris, do you think that the Jews knew that Jesus was a prophet?
I don't know. We've gone on a tangent now. I just
I
want to get back to
know,
the fact that
Because you're not dealing with the fundamental point, Chris. The
the-
fundamental point is you have not shown where in the Quran you tried to go to 12:111. You admitted you were wrong about your interpretation of 12:111.
No, I was correct. I just got the word there was not inapplicable to the people, but to the prophet. That was the only thing.
No. Where does it say
Yeah,
in
I've explained that.
12:111? Where does it say in 12:111 that the Quran is affirming the stories as represented in the Bible of the prophets? Where does it say that?
So we derive the Torah and Injil through separate reasons as being the things that we have, and then combined with that, we say in those stories, which is a reference to at least the story of Joseph in which this chapter occurs, there is a lesson for those of understanding. So there's goodness in this, there's truth in this.
And
It
the
also
story is
says
represented by the Quran, not the Bible. Where does it say the Bible?
right, absolutely. But then it says it's not a narration invented, but a confirmation of what was before it.
What's the word for narration?
I'm not sure. I don't know the Arabic word off the top of my head.
It's right there on the screen. You can't read it?
Jake, come on. You're not doing the whole Arabic supremacy thing, are you?
No, I thought you read Arabic. You can't read Arabic.
Wait, what? I told you I don't read Arabic. What makes you think I read
Well, it's
Arabic?
right here. It's right here. Hadith. Hadith.
Cool. Okay,
That's the
yeah.
word. Okay,
That makes
so
sense.
did you know the Quran was hadith?
Yes, I've heard people say the Quran is a form of hadith, yeah.
Okay, good. So we're
So-
learning something. So now it says here that the Quran was not a hadith which was invented, but a confirmation of what was before it, and a
Right.
detailed explanation of all things. Tafsil kulli shay. A
Right.
detailed explanation of everything.
So it confirms what was
hold on,
before it,
hold
which
on,
we know is in
hold on.
reference to the previous scriptures.
The Quran is a detailed explanation of all things. That's what it's saying, right?
Yep, says there, yeah.
Okay. So does the Quran explain to you how to begin your prayer?
No.
Okay. So when it says it's a detailed explanation of all things, does it literally mean everything?
No, I think it's hyperbolic language the author's using.
Oh, okay. So you allow for hyperbolic language when it comes to the Quran talking about itself, but not when it comes to the Quran talking about previous scripture?
Well, I think the Quran author, does genuinely think he's fully in line with the previous scriptures. That's why he keeps saying it. I think what he's
he knows
doing
he's
is
disagreeing with
no, I don't think so.
with the laws he does, though, right?
I mean, it's possible he might know and just doesn't care. I just don't think it's a very likely reading. But in the Joseph story, if he does know that the previous scriptures are not in line with what he's revealing, it must, and he does know that, then he must genuinely not care about consciously editing.
Chris, the author of the Quran, is he intentionally abrogating laws from the Torah and Injil?
He does with 929 at the end. Yeah. Again, you asked me the same questions that you've.
No, does he do it with other things? Does he do it with other laws?
It's possible.
What?
Yeah, I need to do
Either
a dive
he does or
into.
he doesn't. Do you know if he does?
What do you mean?
Does the author of the Quran intentionally abrogate other laws from the Torah or Injil?
I would say 929 is an example of that. Yeah.
Are there any other examples?
Like I said, I don't know. You keep asking me, going around in a circle, asking the same questions. I keep giving you the same answers. I'm not sure.
So your answer is you don't know.
Yes, Jake. Like I said before, I'm not sure.
Okay, you don't know.
I need to look into that. So
I presented many examples of it. You aren't paying attention.
Jake. I don't think me and you are going to get into the nitty-gritty of this. You've made it abundantly
We
clear.
did. We already got into the nitty-gritty of it. You already.
I just about got into Surah 12. That was just about as far as you let me go.
Oh, we dealt with Surah 12. We dealt with 543 to 48. You already admitted that 543.
From legal authority.
You already admitted that 543 to 48 is a partial affirmation.
In the context of legal authority, but not in the authority of
yes, theology. It's a context of legal authority. It's a partial authority. It's not a full confirmation. And
the
those
full
are your
confirmation
favorite
is theology.
to use, Christopher.
Jake, you've already conceded the authority of the legal terms have been accepted at a point in time in the 7th century. That's all I need. That's all I need. Okay. So I'm happy I've got that.
Okay, Chris, you want to give your closing statement, dude?
Yeah, let's do it. We do it for 3 hours. You know what? Like, we might not see eye to eye on a lot of things, but I do at least respect you for having me on the channel. I understand that you're in full on dour mode, and I expect that. So it doesn't mean a thing.
Chris, was it fairly respectful though?
Yeah, in a way. In a way. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. You're more respectful than
talk most of the time. I'm not saying you talk more than me, but I let you talk. I let you say what you wanted to say.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you were doing your best to do that. And you, like I said, you're much better than others. So I'll give you credit for that. That being said, though, Jake, I don't think
too, right?
Compared to who? Who you compare? Like Daniel Kikachu? Yeah, go on. I'll give you that. But
all right, Chris.
But yeah. Anyway,
go ahead.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Jake, I don't think you've got into the heart of the Islamic dilemma. We barely touched it, and we only really kind of got into it near the end. I think that the prophet stories are a huge problem because the Quran gives different accounts, but those accounts seem to be human origin. They seem to be from Syriac legends, mostly, particularly for Joseph. I've given you the scholars, Joseph Whitstone and Charbel Risk. You can also read Gabriel Reynolds' new book, which is this book right here, which I've been reading. If you want to read more about that.
Hold on a second. You got to show us the cover. You can't show. You don't know what it is, man.
Oh, you got a good point there. Christianity
and the Quran. Okay. Yeah. And what does he say in there that you like?
So he references both Joseph Whitstone's work. Actually, he doesn't mention Charbel Ritz, but he mentions Joseph Whitstone. And he basically says, this scholar has shown that the Surah 12 account has a ton of similarities with a few different Syriac sources. Joseph of Saru, who is a Church of the East Syriac bishop, who wrote homilies, and that seems to be influencing the Quran narrative because the Quran responds to it and also copies it in certain areas, as well as Pseudo Nasai, who's another individual who seems to be influential in the story. That's
okay. So, Chris, I have a question for you about that.
Thought we were about to roll up.
Yeah, but I just want to ask you: do you think that the Bible quotes or is influenced by non-canonical sources at all?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah, I think the Bible clearly is. Like the term "cloud rider" is a borrowed term, right? So the Bible does indeed acknowledge and address this. The difference is, though, that the Bible doesn't name certain sources by name and repeatedly confirms them multiple times, and then holds Jews accountable to those stories. In
No, but what I'm trying to say
That's the
is
difference.
your claim is that this outside source, right, regarding the story of Joseph, because you think it comes from this earthly source, therefore that means the Quran is false because it's using these non-canonical stories that let's say Christians or Jews, generally speaking, did not accept. Well, we could just make the same argument when it comes to Enoch or other non-canonical texts that have an influence on texts, including the New Testament. So I could understand this from an atheist point of view, but from someone who believes in God, I genuinely don't understand the argument, because you can believe that someone can write down and have aspects of a story correct that may have been preserved in some other manner rather than in the canonical scriptures. And yet God also, if you believe that the Quran is revelation, which I know you don't, could have just revealed it in the Quran as well. So it seems like a naturalistic explanation. I mean, it very easily, if you can grant that when it comes to the Bible, then it can be the same with the Quran.
So, like I illustrated, it's different because the Quran talks about our scriptures by name and it confirms them multiple times and it holds us accountable. The Bible doesn't do that. What is it? Codex Hammurabi or whatever it is. Like, it doesn't mention that by name and say, by the way, we're confirming this. And if you don't follow this, there are consequences. You don't find that in the
But it doesn't mention, but Chris, it doesn't mention the thing that you mentioned either. It mentions the story in which aspects of the story of Joseph agree with aspects of that other source, but it never claims that it's affirming that source.
No, it kind of has to be. If you think that this is from God and has no human involvement, which is your view, you would have to say that this is the original that was revealed down to Moses.
What about Enoch?
We don't, first of all, we don't believe in the revelation in the same way you do. We don't think it's like Allah is just beaming it down. We don't think the same way. We think it's a human involvement with.
I think it's oral revelation.
Right. But okay, so did Muhammad have any influence on the Quran?
No, what do you mean?
No, of course not. No, of course. He faithfully transmitted it, right? And it's the words of Jibreel from Allah. It's not his words in any sense. But we would say, for example, in the gospel accounts of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they had some involvement in that, in function, in harmony with the influence of the Holy Spirit. So we have a different version of revelation. It's different from us than it is.
Yeah, but even when they're influenced by the Holy Spirit, are they writing things down? Could they write things down which are false?
I'm not getting into a inerrancy debate. What I'm trying to say is,
I'm just saying, I thought you believe in the same thing. Don't you believe?
Isn't this, Jake? This is meant to be a final thing. I do have to go soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Sorry.
Anyway, the point is that
I'll give you another minute to summarize.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's kind of a continuation thing. All I was going to say is, so if you believe in conscious edits, you have to explain why the author of the Quran chose to be influenced by a common error source rather than a before common error source that could have been a candidate for the actual revelation that Allah originally revealed. I don't think you can give a reason for that. And therefore, based on that evidence, I would say that the best explanation is that this is a human work. That's what I would say. Okay. I have more arguments to base that as well.
Chris, I know you're probably not interested, but I'm really interested to see David's response or some of these other people's response to what you said. I mean, you still are confirming that you don't believe that you think David has the same position regarding the Jews and Christians following the Torah and Injil, that they don't have to follow the Quran. You don't think he believes that?
I'll ask him. Okay. That's the best thing, right?
Okay. And will you do it on camera? Because how will we know?
I don't know. We'll probably do a review or a chat about this. Probably, I'm guessing.
Okay. All right. So, I would like to see that.
Yeah, it's cool. No worries. Anyway, I'll let you summarize, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just let you go because there's some super chats I want to address on my own channel. If that's okay.
All right, then that's fine. Yeah, no worries. Anyway, thank you for your time, Jake. I hope that our future conversations. Because by the way, do you remember me? Do you remember me from Speaker's Corner? I don't think we didn't speak.
But I saw you there on video.
You saw me. Oh, on the video. Okay, fine. Because I was standing next to Bob. But anyway, wanted a few.
Oh, when I baked Bob, that was hard on him, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure. All right then, Jake. I wish you all the best and the best of health, and I hope you come to Christ one day.
And
Anyway.
I hope you become a Muslim one day.
All right, man. Take
All
care.
right, take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. So there's Chris. Chris is gone. I'm not going to add too much here because that would be unfair, but there were some super chats that I didn't want to go by the wayside. Aqidah Defense said DW, David Wood got smoked. Chris is out of his depth, in my honest opinion, from his tweets. I agree, but these guys, they didn't see how I was going to connect all the dots, and you see how it connected. Let's see. Aqidah Defense again. Chris, you're out of your depth. You seem not to track. You have said your version of the dilemma, but can't defend it. With that, why should I buy your book? Okay, fair enough. Chris, I want that free copy, signed copy, dude. Did not David Wood say after the debate it requires modification? Yeah, it does, because David at least was being honest. And if he's honest, he'll come forward and say, Jake, you are representing me correctly. I believe that each respective group is supposed to judge by their own scripture and not the Quran. They're not required to become Muslims and judge by the Quran. That was Avery and David's position. Chris has a more accurate view of the Quran that it doesn't say that does actually require them to become Muslims and to follow Islamic law. So that's very clear. So I'll summarize. Look, Chris, it was fairly respectful, but I have to be honest, he completely conceded the Islamic dilemma. And the reason is because he explicitly stated that the Quran views itself as an authority, even if it's a partial authority, over the Jews and Christians and over previous scripture. Now, once you allow that reading, then you have to understand the hermeneutical background to it and the interpretive background to it. If you allow that verses 543 to 548 and 1094 and 285 can be read in a time-bound and partial confirmation fashion as a partial confirmation of the authority, not a full confirmation of the authority, including not a full confirmation of the legal authority, then those same verses, which you also sometimes use for inspiration and preservation, can be read in a partial inspiration and partial preservation fashion. The only difference is Chris says, yeah, but you have explicit verses that show abrogation. He only mentioned one, which was 929. He didn't mention the dietary restrictions. He didn't mention the Qibla difference. But I showed those points in my debates with Avery and David. So now the only difference is, Chris, what parts of the scripture is the Quran affirming? You're saying it's not affirming the ongoing legal authority of those, and you claimed it's affirming the ongoing stories from them, but I showed you the Quran actually corrects a false prophecy in your Bible, and you had no answer for that. You said, oh, it's not a false prophecy, but I can't show you how. You were busted on that fact. It is a false prophecy in your Bible, and the Quran edits it, corrects it, and shows that Joseph's prophecy actually came true, that it wasn't a false prophecy. So we see it very clearly. And then when you're talking about the full affirmation, all those verses that you use about a supposed full affirmation of the authority, you're saying it's only a partial. Well, we can do that with the inspiration and preservation. You're going to say, oh, yeah, but Jake, you have clear points or verses to show about abrogation. Well, now the only question is, do I have clear examples to show that your concept of inspiration or what we believe is inspired are different than what you believe is inspired? And when it comes to preservation, do I have verses from the Quran or a hadith to show that your scripture is not fully preserved? I do if you read it in a full context. So what it means is, but even if I couldn't show that, Chris cannot show you that there are verses in the Quran which actually explicitly affirm a full preservation, a full inspiration, or a full authority of the previous scriptures. So would be an argument from silence at that point if you said, oh, Jake, you don't have a verse that says the Bible is a fully that the Bible is corrupted or the Bible is not fully inspired. You don't have a verse that shows that your Bible or your scriptures are fully preserved, inspired, or authoritative. That's the point. Just as I showed you now with the authority, it's only partial and not full, and it's time bound as well, as you said, and only for specific groups of people. Then we can make the same argument regarding inspiration and preservation. So even if I don't, which I do believe I have it, but even if I didn't have explicit verses that show that, like 279, like 513, which do show textual corruption, even if I didn't show that, you don't have any positive verses which have a full affirmation of the Torah and Injil in terms of their inspiration and preservation, just as you admitted they don't with the authority point. Now, David Wood and Avery and your boys, you should invite them on. I want them to address this. Am I misrepresenting them when they say that the authority aspect of the Islamic dilemma includes that the Torah and Injil are fully authoritative, inspired, and preserved for the Jews and the Christians? Jews follow the Torah, Christians follow the Injil. The Jews and Christians are not told that they have to follow the Quran for to be justified and to be rectified with God, to make it to paradise. Avery and David don't believe that Jews and Christians have to follow the Quran. They don't believe that. Chris does, because he actually has the correct Quranic view when it comes to that, at least with respect to the later period, as he's mentioning. But now the problem is with that, on the other hand, if David does take your position, Chris, then he results in the same dilemma. 1094, 285, all these other verses now become partially affirming and not fully affirming in terms of authority. Once you allow for that, then we go down the same direction when it comes to inspiration and preservation. So this is the David Dhimmi dilemma, or the David dilemma in general. If you say that it is a full confirmation of the inspiration, preservation, and authority, then we show you verses that negate that by showing that the Quran is not affirming their full authority. If you say, no, Jake, we're going to take a modified view like Chris, that it's not affirming the full authority, that it's only partially authoritative for a specific group, not all people and not all times and not all laws, then that means you're only affirming a partial authority. And if by the same token, you can affirm a partial authority when even though it says judge by the Torah, judge by the Injil, it doesn't say judge by part of the Torah, part of the Injil, but you accept that based upon other verses, then you can also have the same reading of judge by the Torah, judge by the Injil, stand upon the Torah and Injil as not referring to the full of it fully being inspired and fully preserved, just as it's not fully authoritative. It's a hermeneutical argument and point. You guys are done. You're dusted. I know it's hard on the mushrikeen, but somebody's got to do it. If it's not me, who's it going to be? Anyway, with that being said, guys, I hope that you found this interesting, educational. It was lively at times, but I hope that you benefited from it. And if you did, inshallah, then please consider going to the links that are pinned at the top of the description of this video, as well as in the comment section. Your support is much needed and appreciated. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and reward you all. I'll see you guys all again next time. Look out for my debate with Avery. It's supposed to be released in about an hour and a half from now. And then I'll wind up doing a review on that and my debate with David Wood and my debate with Ridvan, apostate Ridvan, and then also my debate with Daniel. I've just been traveling a lot, so I plan on doing debate reviews and interactions on that. And I will have streams going forward this year that are going to be inviting Christians on to discuss the Islamic dilemma. So anyway, guys, with that being said, see you all again next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.